And Tim will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so non-board members, I see we have Kirk and Megan and Paul representing our construction project. Tony, there are 2 call-in numbers. So would you folks on the phone identify yourselves?
Yes, this is Pete DeLoya from Turner Construction.
Hi, Pete.
Hello.
So that accounts for 1. And the other, is this a person for public comment?
5-1 is Margaret Garrett.
It's Margaret.
Okay, it's the double Margaret. Excellent. So that
I could use a double Margaret, you know, like if we could get another one.
If there were really 2 of her. And Jason has joined at 6:03. So excellent. Public input session. So that would be Luann, and I know there is some.
Yes, good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Yes, we do have quite a bit of public input, so just want to warn you in advance. I have 7 pages here. So, okay, I'm just going to jump right in.
Yep, we just want to remind everyone to please mute your line so Luann can get through this. We'll read them all, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, the first 2 comments are received from Facebook, and the first one says, thanks to the staff who continues to provide cheerful curbside service in spite of all the upheaval going on. I certainly appreciate your efforts. That's from Sherry Demorier Haluska. And also, outstanding job, everyone, under what I'm sure are stressful and difficult working conditions. Can't wait for construction to be done. And it's from Jean Marie Cole, a former employee of the library. And then after that, we have quite a bit of commentary received from staff members that I will read. And unless otherwise noted, everyone has requested anonymity. Given the rising numbers of the COVID-19 virus and hospitalizations in the county, Tim and the board should not choose to increase the risk of exposing staff to the virus by allowing the public to enter the building. Even though the board said the library would remain open during the entire construction period, we were not facing a pandemic then. We are now. Things change. The public will understand. They have to. Our lives depend on it. Are there any concerns about the lack of lines of sight throughout the library as it relates to physical safety of staff and patrons of all ages? The setup of the shelves in the Helderberg room and reading room is unsafe. Are there recommendations to staff from the police department about staying physically safe should there be an emergency with the current floor plan? Will staff have fire drills, code atom refreshers, and active shooter training prior to the reopening to the public? Next one says, I'm confused. Tim and the board want to open our doors, but health professionals, the county executive, and the health commissioner are saying that businesses should be using technology, moving remote, limiting contact, arranging for workers to do their jobs from home, and using curbside. This approach keeps businesses going and keeps people safe at the same time. What do the board members think? Next one says, can Tim, the library staff, and the board revisit reopening to the public maybe in January when it might be safer? If it's not safe then, plans should be discussed with regularity, and the whole staff must be aware of what's going on. Next one. Staff work really hard, both in the library and at home. I hope all members of the board believe that's the case. Sometimes it sounds like some of the board members think we are slacking off when we are at home. We aren't, we're working. Tim has a long list of examples of the work we are able to do from home and in the building, and it's a lot. We do a lot. Can we dial things back so all of the departments are strictly back on teams, working 4 or 5 hours in the building, working their remaining hours at home, rotating days in the building, doing curbside, online programs and services, and professional development? We were doing a great job with that setup. Patrons were happy overall. This approach should not be viewed as going backwards. It's just being cautious so we will be able to move forward when it's safe to do so. We have been told we can take our 30-minute lunch break at our desk in the periodical section, in our cars, or in the break room. However, there aren't enough physically distanced spaces to eat. The periodicals section now houses boxes. The temperatures are dropping and eating in our cars will be extremely difficult soon. The break room is not a safe location for staff to be entering and exiting due to the virus being airborne and people removing masks while eating, and CSEA's health and safety specialist highly discourages staff from using the break room for those reasons. If union members work 6 hours or more hours, they must be permitted a meal break, and a safe meal space must be provided. What do you recommend staff do? How is the air filtration with all of the moving and demolition? Is it up to good safety standards? Can the library continue curbside pickup and online programs and resources, but not let patrons in? If we must allow patrons inside, can we go back to the Norman Skill browsing room? There has to be more full staff meetings. It's got to be hard being the director, but Tim seems to only talk to staff about the construction. Most staff are more concerned about their health and safety right now. Please help him communicate better to staff about health and safety. Can you help him reach out to actual medical and emergency professionals to help guide him through this time period? We're in the middle of a pandemic and staff don't know what's happening at the library because there is poor communication throughout the whole building. If the department heads don't know plans, they need to tell us that. Otherwise, it feels like information is being withheld. Please ask Tim to change to a more inclusive approach to managing and communicating from the top down. My doctor told me that I should wear my mask and a face shield if I am to work directly with patrons, but she said I need to clean the shield. I don't know how to do this correctly. Any guidance provided for library employees? If we have to help patrons inside the building, should we be wearing face shields with our masks? The library should give us training about cleaning these, but it hasn't. The union is doing the best they can to keep me safe and informed, but the library is supposed to take care of this stuff. It's the library's job. Staff are reasonably nervous about their health and safety. Please don't dismiss our concerns. About 2 months ago at a board meeting, the president asked Barry to come up with a plan if we are closing again due to COVID-19. How will we be paid? Work from home? Furlough? Which is more important, opening the physical library for a small number of patrons during an extremely unsafe time, or remaining closed to the public and keeping staff safe while safely delivering our great services? When you look back at this time, will you be proud of your choice? To keep staff and patrons safe as concerns about the coronavirus rise, the library should consider pausing the plan to reopen the library to public browsing. The library should focus on curbside services at this time and not push the envelope of adding indoor browsing to a space that doesn't adequately allow proper social distancing that ultimately leaves the staff and public potentially vulnerable to spreading the virus through our community. Guilderland Public Library should be a steward in the community that confidently spreads a message that libraries respect the current situation of the virus, value the safety of the public and their staff, lead in an innovative way that puts libraries in a place in our community that makes smart, informed decisions that will ensure public libraries will be a place of the future that people can depend on. We've all just learned that one emergency exit that existed at the east end of the building is closed or nailed shut because it drops off 10 to 15 feet into the area being dug for a foundation. With the relocation of all the tall stacks into this area and the building of a temporary wall to close off the construction area. This will mean that any patron in this part of the building will have a very long way to travel to an emergency exit. Also, it looks like the actual lit emergency exit signs are missing or certainly not visible from where the high stacks area is. Additionally, the 2 exit doors out of the Helderberg room, where another large portion of the collection would be browsable, lead directly to a dug-up area and a backhoe. This is a significant safety issue for both patrons and staff and needs to be addressed. Every step of the library's phased reopening plan during COVID has required much more work than is seen on paper. Each takes longer than anticipated to account for safety, accessibility, and even just having proper equipment and supplies. Reopening to the public is no different. There is simply no way we will be able to safely be ready by December 1st. With the stacks finally moved, we need to work on where to relocate staff, how and where to set up service desks, where to locate self-checkouts, figure out square footage limitations of people in the building, create directional flow of traffic, develop all new signage for all of the moved materials so patrons can be as self-directed as possible, figure out how to avoid having staff and patrons within the same non-COVID compliant aisles, and develop messaging to the public about everything. We couldn't do any of this until the materials were all moved and we saw what we'd be working with. And even that job is still being finished as we continue to reshelve materials to avoid overcrowding and label every aisle just so our pages can figure out all of the new places that thousands of materials have to go. Our overarching point is COVID continues to force workarounds for everything we do and is only exacerbated by construction. Please give staff the proper time to regroup and plan properly after this huge move of materials, with an eye toward a possible reopening in January. All of this may be moot given the terrible direction the country seems to be heading in. Okay, I'm on page 5, so we've got a few more to go. We commend those board members who took the time to tour the facility as it now stands, witnessing firsthand the hugely monumental task of relocating our collection to accommodate considerable construction disruptions for the next 11 months. Thank you for caring. Every single member of the board should take this initiative. Only by seeing it in person can one fully appreciate the tremendous amount of work involved. Please know that your hardworking library staff is stretched thin and thoroughly exhausted by all the pivoting required of us this year, with no end in sight. The pandemic plus construction is just too much to deal with. In 2019, the library pledged to remain open during construction, well before we knew we would be pummeled by a pandemic. Adding constant COVID concerns to the mix, which have not abated these past 8 months and are currently intensifying, is a game changer, which should effectively nullify this promise. Cases are rising daily, and schools are once again resorting to remote learning. We implore the board to exercise common sense and continue to put health and safety first by delaying our reopening to the public on December 1st, just 12 short days away. We simply cannot do it. Not to mention, we can't even provide restrooms to the public right now. Please revisit the proposal to reopen and push it to January at the earliest. Thank you. Now that the movers have completed the shelf shift and we have seen the space that will be left when the construction wall is built, it is far too tight a space to safely accommodate both the public and the staff during this COVID pandemic. GPL is in a unique situation, being the only library to undergo major construction that is limiting our space to a third of what it normally is, just when space is needed most to keep everyone safe. We are currently in the greatest spike in the area that the area has seen since the beginning of this pandemic, and the resources and safety that will be sacrificed to open the building to the public now is irresponsible. Rushing to open to the public for browsing specifically during a time of rise in the virus, while conditions in the building are crowded due to construction, only serves to endanger or undermine established services like curbside pickup and returns, which can continue to function safely during the same time. It puts an undue pressure on operations that threatens to shut down everything instead of us remaining in a position to provide some valuable services. Instead of all or nothing, there is a middle way forward for staff and public. Continue with curbside pickup and returns until the virus spread is receding or more contained again. those services and how we are accomplishing them while also under construction remains a crucial or vital achievement. If this virus hadn't come along and upended our operations, we wouldn't have necessarily come up with the curbside pickup and remote returns services and become flexible and adaptable with them based on conditions in the building for the days and weeks when the building would have had to close for construction, sans virus. The building would just be closed. Now the building stands a chance of remaining, quote, open, even on those days or weeks, so long as the curbside pickups and return services can still be carried out. Thank you for your consideration of this middle path. Staff have been working very hard for the past 8 months to provide a continuum of services under challenging and unprecedented circumstances. The public has had the opportunity to participate in virtual programs, take advantage of new digital collections and database offerings, receive craft and literacy kits, tax forms, and new materials curbside, and have their reference questions answered remotely. To enter into this proposed new phase of service during a time of rapid growth of the coronavirus seems both irresponsible and indifferent to the health and safety of staff and their loved ones. I respectfully request that the board push back the proposed reopening date until mid-January. This will give the library time to investigate health and safety concerns and create the best plans to ensure the well-being of both staff and the public. We can continue to monitor the trajectory of the virus over the next several weeks and hopefully ensure that we are past the virus peaks that are likely to come after Thanksgiving and December holidays. In the meantime, staff will continue to provide curbside and virtual services while planning for the safest reopening possible. Now the following is from Maria Buell, Department Head, Programs and Services and Interlibrary Loan. The executive boards of each CSEA unit in the library would like to ask the CSEA Health and Safety Rep, Brian Pomeroy, to do a site visit at the library to help advise on the next steps of the reopening plan. We continue to appreciate being actively involved in the details of the phased reopening plan. And these comments are from Diane Bruins, Principal Library Clerk for Access and Circulation Services. Safety of staff and patrons is a great concern with the upcoming season and the shrinking workable areas of the library. Emergency exits and an emergency plan, many exits are unusable and non-accessible. COVID signage and procedure. Only one-way directions remain at a 6-foot distance, masks required, sanitizing items browsed, time limits and occupancy limits are a concern. The access department is already crowded. Other staff workers walk through on a daily basis to access other areas of the building. The usable footprint of the department is shrinking, but what we are asked to do is increasing. The collection is still being adjusted and moved to various locations. Until that settles, we cannot provide clear signage or even know the location ourselves. How will patrons be directed and/or assisted? How will staff be interacting with patrons? What are the responses that the library would like us to give to patrons' questions and concerns regarding services? Self-check, where to locate, will it be mandatory, and how will we assist patrons with this? Most have never used our machines. RFID, educating patrons. How will we share this new technology with patrons? I understand that the library will be readmitting patrons at some point. However, I do not see how it can be done safely on or around December 1st.
Thank you so much, Luann.
You're welcome.
For reading the public comment. Clearly, there is a lot of concern from the librarians that they wanted the board to hear directly from them and not through Tim. So, Barbara, yes.
Yes, I just have a process question. When we have public commentary at a board meeting, the individuals do, acknowledge themselves, and it becomes a matter of public record. So I would ask that when these comments are reported, all of whom, I would say the majority of them are very, very helpful, that the name of the individual be associated with the comment. There's nothing there that that I heard in the last 10 minutes, other than concerns, legitimate concerns that they're sharing with the board. But I would also say that, you know, when they see something like an emergency exit not being available, whatever, that we have people on site. Kirk is there. I know I took the tour and he was very, very helpful. Because when you're on the ground, obviously sometimes you miss things that the experts, you know, think that they've covered. So I would just, as I say, I think as a matter of process, the name should be associated
Barbara,
with the commentary.
I don't want to.
We've never taken anonymous.
Correct, Barbara, but we can. They don't have to identify themselves in public comment. Jason, you are unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to know were there any actual like public input, like, you know, from the public? Like I didn't like, was that just all of the employees?
At the beginning, there was some things on Facebook about what a great job the library is doing that were received through Facebook. But the majority of that was library employees.
Yeah, that was all I received. I check email, I check social media, you know, various avenues, and that was all that I got.
Okay, Barbara, yes.
Just a follow up, where in our bylaws or whatever, or under Robert's rules, when we have public comment and people traditionally have been before the board physically, and we've had union members come many multiple times, and they've always identified themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. Why, in this instance, are we saying that there's a legitimate ability to make public comment without identifying yourself? I've never seen this in all the years I've been on the board.
Right, just so it's not that we're saying in this instance, I'm saying in all instances, people that make public comment don't actually have to identify themselves. I looked this up today, specifically in anticipation of this question to say, do they have to? And no, they do not.
Where did you look that up, Caitlin?
This afternoon.
What under what auspices?
I looked up under, you know, I can re-Google what I looked up, but that would be a waste of our time. Currently at this meeting, we have a large agenda. I will find it for you, Barbara, and send it. But what I have found is that it even went all the way to the Supreme Court, and that people making public comment in public meetings did not have to identify themselves, as far as I understood. It was on my lunch break. It was quick. I will find it again.
No
for
problem.
You. And Luann will at later when we get through this, email all of that so we can read it. But I think the main takeaway is that the staff have concerns that they wanted the board directly to hear. So we can address some of it under the operational update later in the agenda, because it was a lot of, I think, directions for Tim from the staff, but Tim takes his directions from us and not from them. So we may have to direct him to do a few things in response to those public comments. But you know, he takes it from us and not from them. So as a board, we can consider it and then go forward. So that being said, we've heard them, we'll consider them, and we will, you know, have things that Tim can address, and have things that the board can address, we will address. And we will move on to the construction update. I don't know where you guys want to start. We've got a few of you. Anybody want to jump in straight away?
I can jump in here or start. I think a majority of the comments. Sorry.
You know what? Before we jump into this, I just really want to say this because like we just kind of like hop stepped over like, you know, the whole public input and confidentiality and anonymous thing, and we spent like the first 20 minutes discussing it. But like then when we were like, all right, well, what's the ruling with that? Oh well, you know, we don't have enough time to deal with that. I just want to point that out.
Okay. I can go back to it. I can keep looking. I just want to keep moving the meeting forward. I will look while they give the operational update, and then we will return to it. So Megan, go for it.
Thank you. I know you've got a large agenda, so I'll try to be concise in what I have to review with everyone. As you know, you've been invited to come and see the progress so far of construction and relocation work. And we just wanted to reconfirm that we are on schedule and actually looking to be somewhat ahead of schedule on some of our phases. I know that we've presented those phasing diagrams before we had bid the project about what areas were going to be worked on and in what sequence, but with the library being closed to the public and the contractors being motivated to take advantage of it, we've actually managed to do a lot more demolition, move the project along at a faster pace than we had outlined originally. So we're very optimistic that we've got a lot of scopes of work moving forward and very efficiently. So that is good news. The second thing I wanted to go over with you folks is the budget. So I'm going to present my screen, which is angry. Sorry. So for the budget overview, I just wanted to recap. As you all were familiar with, back in 2019, the referendum language included a bond amount of $6.9 million, a capital account contribution of $1.4 million for a total project budget of this $8.353698 value. So we have that scope. And then we also had previously identified a construction project that we applied for a DLD grant for in 2019. And that was for the building exterior envelope improvements, the makeup air unit, the mechanical system component replacements and upgrades, and the restroom renovation project. So we had that project, which had a value of $915,157, and then the referendum project, which we just outlined. For efficiency, we combined these two projects into one in our bid documents, so we weren't paying multiple contractors to do similar work and not paying the general conditions multiple times. So that gave, if we add these two scopes together for our total project cost in terms of expenditures at this time, the total project that we're looking at is a $9.2 million project. It's $9,268,855 value. And then we can deduct the 2019 DLD grant award, which was $481,000. So our current budget amount is $8,787,803. Did everyone follow that and understand that? So now looking at how it breaks down, we've got construction contracts, those 5 contracts that we awarded to our primes for general construction, plumbing, fire protection, mechanical and electrical work, and those total this $4.4 million value. We have a millwork package that we're anticipating bidding, and we have an allowance for that set aside at $350,000. We're carrying a very conservative construction contingency amount of $500,000. And we have a line item in here for purchasing our floor finishes on New York State contract. And we have that allowance as $125,000. So all of these direct construction hard cost expenses total $5,465,950. What we had budgeted or anticipated with the referendum in that phase 1 project was about $7 million in construction hard costs. So as you can see, we're under budget for that. We've got, as we reviewed during the referendum process, project soft costs, which include design fees, your construction management fees, special inspections, legal expenses, bonding, and et cetera. That value during the referendum process was established at this $1.6 million value, and we're carrying that value still. We anticipate that some of the line items may not be spent to their full extent, but we're going to carry this for now. We had a furniture, fittings, and equipment allowance of $520,000 during the referendum. Currently, we're looking to expand that line item budget because our scope has increased somewhat, and we also have more social distancing concerns. So we'd like to add some more considerations for furniture and equipment. We'd also like to include an RFID system for the circulation staff so that the materials can be tagged and received through an automatic sorting system. And then we wanted to reserve some miscellaneous funds for miscellaneous direct expenditures that we anticipate. So all of these anticipated costs total right now $8,187,803, which leaves an unassigned amount of $600,000 because our anticipated project cost was this 9.2 value. So right now we're on schedule and under budget, so we're happy. Does anyone have any questions about budget right now or comments? I can't see everyone's screen, so I'm just going to assume everyone is. I haven't lulled anyone into sleep yet. So the next thing to talk about is this construction contingency, where I have money set aside for any things that come up during construction that were unforeseen. You know, sometimes when we're excavating, we find something in the ground that we didn't know was there. Sometimes within the building, there's systems and things just not as we anticipated them being. And we need to have a mechanism to get potential change orders reviewed and approved. We have the design steering committee in place to review things like our finish selections and our furniture options. And we'd also like to have the board considered giving the design steering committee some level of authorization to approve some smaller budget change orders that may come up, so that way we don't have to wait for a full board meeting or call an emergency board meeting for things that may come up. And I believe Tim had the library's attorney put together some language for that so that you could discuss it and review it. I don't know if Caitlin, if this is the right time to do it, or you want me to keep going with the things I wanted to talk about? I have one more.
No, just you go ahead and keep going through your agenda for right now.
Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about relates to change orders. We have had one item come up, which is a very good example of why we carry the construction contingency throughout the project. As the demolition was happening inside the building, you know, we were taking down all of these existing flat ceilings, the 2x2 acoustic ceiling tile systems. We were going to replace all those ceilings, but we were going to salvage and reuse, or actually keep in place and reuse the existing linear light fixtures, which are shown in this image on the left in the blue room. Those fixtures are throughout the building, in the staff areas, the collection spaces, the children's program room, the Norman Skill room. They were LED retrofit fixtures, so our intent was to reuse them, just relocate them as needed for new partition layouts and new functions of the building. However, as they started to take down the ceilings and the electrician was on site to make sure that all of these existing fixtures were suspended properly to the decking so they could remain in place without the ceiling, the housing started to come apart. And it turns out after they got the first few on the ground that they started to understand what happened. This fixture, which is the original fixture plus an adapter kit to make it an LED bulb and driver, is integral to the acoustic ceiling tile grid. So there's the original box housing, the bulb housing, and then the two pieces that you can see the hand is holding on one side. They all, in order to hold all these pieces together and keep them in the ceiling, they need to be connected to that ceiling grid track, which we've now removed. So for safety, the electricians have tied them up with wires, but the pieces aren't as secure and fixed as they should be. Now, so they presented us with a few options moving forward, because these aren't now going to just be as easy to relocate as we had originally intended in the documents. They're going to need some additional time to be reconfigured, clipped into place and such. So before we went down the road of authorizing the contractor to pursue this, we said, well, is there some better options for fixtures, knowing that these are retrofit fixtures? So we had them give us a few different options. The first option, if we keep these fixtures They're going to remove them and store them in a container outside of the construction area and the parking lot so that they're not damaged, because right now they're suspended somewhat, not as well as they can be. They'll put up some temporary lighting, and then when the new ceilings are ready, they'll reinstall the fixtures. And that has a value of additional cost to the project of $58,618, because this scope was far more extensive than we documented in the construction bid documents. So looking at that, we asked if there were some other options for light fixtures that would take that same role but potentially have more efficiency and a lower cost or a similar cost. So the electrical contractor came back to us with 3 options. The option 2 is just a flat illuminated panel, and it was sort of a low budget option. So to replace all of the light fixtures throughout the building, these linear light fixtures with the new fixture, and for option 2 would be $68,889. And that would provide like an illuminated flat panel aesthetic. They gave a second option, which I labeled option 3, which is a volumetric troffer, which has better light disbursement than just a flat panel that's got a center bulb and then 2 wings that help bounce the light out and down for better light quality, especially in stack areas. And they gave a 4th option, which is a high performance volumetric troffer that has a value of $88,499. I spoke at length with the lighting rep and the electricians, and they thought that option 3 was a good option to pursue if we were looking to replace the fixtures. I do have to go back and say that everyone was very surprised to find this condition with the light fixture. We had the electrical engineer come out, a number of the Flex Electric staff were looking at it, and no one had ever seen a fixture kit like this that had a retrofit housing that had multiple pieces that held everything together and then had to clip into the ceiling grid track. So it was one of those things that we say is what construction contingencies are for, that there was no way to know as we looked at the ceiling that they were integral. There was no way to know as the engineers looked above the ceiling at the units that they had this locking in feature. So this is why we have construction contingencies, so we can consider what to do and make the best choices for moving forward. So that is my quick run through of it. Does anyone have any questions? So what we're looking for is to get some direction for the board. We need to make a decision on how to proceed. Should we reuse the existing fixtures and pay the additional cost for them to be removed and then reinstalled, or consider one of the newer LED fixtures?
Meg, may I make one comment?
Please.
Sorry, this is Paul Mays for everyone else. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the volumetric troffers do provide better anti-glare features and better quality of light in those areas. Because they disperse the light, it creates an ambient light rather than a direct glare, and so they're better for eye health and eye fatigue. So the point being, if we have to pay a certain amount of money to put those old kits back that were retrofits of the original fixtures, it might be worth the upgrade. I think the delta is less than 20,000. It's, what was it? It was 60 something to 70 something.
Yes.
I'm sorry, 58 to 73.
It
It is an option that will improve the lighting in all those areas where those fixtures are located. I just wanted to be clear about that is a better quality fixture going forward for staff and patrons.
This is Mark Keeling.
I just wanted to say that the design committee really didn't like option 1, but was recommending either 2 or 3.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark, I heard you quietly, but I heard you.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, so my question is along the lines of safety. If we have to take those lights down, it sounds like that's what's going to have to happen. Is the temporary lighting that's going to be there, if we do decide to open up December 1st, Is that temporary lighting going to be safe enough for the facility to open?
Yes, it will. We'll make sure that it is. But that's the intent, is to have a equal light level to what would have been left in place if the fixtures remained.
And if on that same aspect, if we don't open, is it going to be a safe enough lighting for our staff that needs to still work there?
They're going to need to provide the same light level as those fixtures would have provided. So it won't be dim like construction light, like you see like on job sites at night where it's just dim. This will be appropriate for reading, working, and life safety.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara.
Just a quick question. Option 4, although it's 20,000, let's see, almost 20,000, not quite. Can Paul address that? I don't like the cost of it, but if it's really, from the next 20 years is going to be so much better than option 3, just tell us what that gives us that option 3 doesn't.
Megan, I'd actually defer to you. You were researching this specifically, if you don't mind, Barbara.
Sure.
I believe the contractor wanted to give us a variety. And that was the question that I had for the lighting rep, was what was the best fixture for his recommendation? And his recommendation was option 3, just the traditional volumetric troffer. He said for our application, it's going to provide the same amount of light levels. I think the high performance one is for more variable ceilings. We have continuous flat ceilings where these are located. And consistent usage in the spaces. So his recommendation was the option 3, and we've used that fixture in a number of our other library projects in the past few years, and it's been a good performer for us. So I'm happy to see that it was one of the options they presented to us. It was something that I knew, and it wasn't an unknown that they were throwing at me.
All right. So Megan. I'm sorry, who's this?
It was Mark. So I guess
Mark.
what I want to say, I guess the bottom line is we have to make a change. It's either going to cost us $58,000 or in the range of $88,000.
Yes.
Okay. So, Kathy, you said there was a recommendation for either option 2 or option 3 from the building committee.
We didn't actually even have an option for consideration at the design committee level. I think that was at least I didn't note it on my minutes. I just noted that there were 3 options: either the take down and put the original lights back up, which we weren't recommending, and then the option 2, just replace it with new ones, and then option 3, the better light disbursement. I don't think we even really talked about option 4.
Okay. Richard, I see a hand.
Yeah, we did not talk about option 4 in our meeting. And Megan, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but when we asked about the $5,000 difference between options 2 and 3, you felt that the disbursement, just like it says here, that would provide an advantage for people particularly working at tables in the reading room on option 3 versus option 2.
Yes, and stacks too, because the light output
in the stacks,
and the
correct.
fixture,
Correct.
it
Yeah.
comes out more in a triangular shape as opposed to having a
Yes.
flat panel.
Yeah, that's why it made option 3 sound better to me, because being in the stacks is very difficult to see when you're trying to focus on small letters anyway.
Yeah.
Anything to improve the light in there. So that my feeling was to go with 3.
I think I mentioned briefly that there was an option 4, but knowing that we still need to be fiscally conservative and that option 3 was a good option, that I wanted to stay focused on the option 3. So I apologize if we didn't spend a lot of time on option 4. It was a lot to sort of talk about as I threw them in on their first committee meeting. So, a substantial things that we needed to review and address.
Sure. So what we need a motion on this evening is whether we adopt the change order of option 1, 2, 3, or 4. So we can do that Megan, do you still need to share your screen?
No, I can be done.
Okay, it's easier if I do this if I can
Absolutely.
see people.
No.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be done.
So, does the board feel like there needs to be Richard? Yes.
I'd just like to move that we go with option 3.
Okay, motion to adopt change order option 3, which is
Second.
I see Barbara, second by Barbara, but Megan, can you just tell me the name of that light for the motion?
That'll be Acuity Lighting BLT.
Lighting BLT.
Yes.
Okay.
Call this electrical change order number 1.
Okay. So motion to adopt electrical change order 1, option 3, acute lighting BLT.
Yes.
Is that your motion, Richard?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and it's second by Barbara. Kathy, do you have any of that?
I agree. I mean, I think based on what I've heard and at the design committee meeting, I think that option 3 would be the preferred option.
Excellent. So we have now heard from the chair of the design committee. Is everyone ready to, is there any further discussion? I'm getting none. So for the sake of, I can't see everybody on the screen. Not everyone has their cameras on. I will roll call. Richard?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Mark?
Yeah.
Noreen?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Marcia? Marcia, looks like there's a connection issue, but I am also in favor, so that motion passes with an abstention. Marcia, you're on mute, but are you in favor? So an abstention from Marcia for the minutes because I no longer see her even on the call. Looks like she had a connection issue, but that motion passes. So excellent. That was it for Megan. She's happy to be done, for the record. Is there any other construction update from Turner or Paul?
This is Kirk. I have no more information unless you guys have questions for me.
Yeah, I have a question, Kirk. If staff have concerns about the safety during the construction project, who on site would they be able to speak to?
It would go directly to me, and I can address that issue right away.
Okay. So, all right, excellent. Thank you. Also, I just got, did Peter vote? No, it looks like I did not call Peter's name. So, Peter, were you in favor of that for the record? The change order?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, excellent. And reminder, mute your line if it is not in use. So, now we all, for the record, also know if staff have issues on site about safety and construction, they can speak directly with Kirk. Anything else from Turner or Paul?
I just had a question. I know that in my minutes for the first design committee meeting, I had another change order that I had listed for a temperature sensor in the sprinkler room. Is that something that we needed to vote on, or something that that we don't?
We can review it at this level, or if we pass the language for giving the design steering committee authorization to approve some smaller value change orders, we can do it at the committee level. What Kathy was referring to is the mechanical contractor has provided a change order proposal for $1,300 and I believe $39 to add a temperature sensor.
I'm sorry, Megan, I'm gonna have to interrupt. Jason, will you please mute your line? I'm having trouble hearing. Thank you.
Hi, it's Marcia Aladraki. For some reason, I could not get into the WebEx again, so I'm doing this by phone.
Okay, thanks, Marcia. I did, so what you missed is that motion passed. We have you as an abstention because you weren't on the line. Jason, thank you. So we weren't, the vote went through, and Kathy was just asking about another potential change order that got discussed in the meeting. So I would like just to interrupt for a second. There should not be chat taking place in the chat box during the meeting. That is, makes it not open to the public. So as stated before, we will get through the construction update and then we will revisit the public comment section. I will read what has been written in the chat regarding that for the public record when this is done. Please be respectful of the people that are speaking. Thank you. So Kathy, you had a question about a change order. Potentially, Megan, you were answering.
Yes, sorry. It's a small change order, and one of the things that we had hoped for the board to review tonight is the procedures and the hierarchy of what change orders should come before the entire board and what should be reviewed at the design steering committee level. So I think you're going to review that a little bit later in your meeting. The proposed change order that Kathy was referencing is for $1,300 and I believe $39 to add a temperature sensor in the new sprinkler service room because it is an addition to the building. So it's an outside room. It's heated and insulated, obviously, but it only has an exterior door and the staff won't be using it regularly for storage or anything like that. So Lou, being prudent, inquired if it made sense to have a temperature sensor in there so that he can monitor the temperature of that room in case for some reason the heating fails. That sensor will be connected to the overall building management system so Lou can log in at any point and double check it and receive alarms if there is something wrong. So it's something that, you know, for a small value, you have sort of the insurance of not having pipes freeze. So that was something we also discussed at the committee level, and we can have the board approve it because we have an established that procedural, or we can do it at our next committee meeting, whatever you guys would like to do.
Okay, I guess so. It is under the design committee part of the agenda, but I think it may be important to discuss now. You know, this is just over $1,000 change order. You know, do we require Tim to come to the board with something like this, or is this something, you know, what is the threshold for the change order authority that we should grant? So we're not calling an emergency meeting, you know, every other week to resolve this. And I believe Chris Lanchanton has sent us some language on this. And so there's a few different levels of things that she recommends, that anything from $1,000 to $10,000 is the building committee chair / library director. $10,000 to $40,000 that the building committee has authorization. $40,000 plus would require the board of trustees approval. So I have language. Paul, yes.
I just wanted to add that is very common in library construction projects, that such thresholds are established so that it expedites the processing of things like this that are a tiny percentage of the budget, particularly given that we have an extensive contingency. If this project were over budget and we had to scrape every dime to make sure we could cover any extra, that would be a different story, but it's within the budget. So it's a very common procedure in order to facilitate construction. I just wanted to assure you it wasn't a unique thing, and the numbers that Chris provided are consistent with what we often see with library boards.
Mark.
Caitlin, this is, yeah, so I agree with the verbiage. My only question or concern I would have, or say question, is could there be verbiage written in there about total amount? So give me an example. You know, I'm just going to use Tim as an example. Tim can authorize anything up to $10,000, but he can't go over $100,000 total authorization in the contract or in the total project.
Oh, so that's okay. I don't have that in front of me, but I don't recall what our contingency budget is. Some percentage of the total project cost, but an exact figure. So I think what you're proposing is that, you know, $1,000, $5,000, a bunch of those is going to add up. And at some point we have to say, you know, once we get to the half of our contingency budget, we need to readdress this. Yes? Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah.
That is typically called an aggregate not to exceed limit. So you could ask Chris to provide you the language, and you could decide what proportion of the overall contingency you wanted to set that at. But the point being that you couldn't spend the entire contingency and then find out it had been nickel and dimed away. Just for the record, you do have a $500,000 contingency in the budget. And then, as Megan explained earlier, an additional $600,000 that has been unassigned. Megan, correct me if I'm wrong. So really right now you have a $1.1 million contingency. I wouldn't anticipate we're going to spend anything close to that, but you are well covered. $1,000 change order with 1.1 million in contingency is a very minor situation.
Sure, Barry. Yes, Barry.
I have no problem with the, yeah, am I unmuted? Yeah.
You are.
I have no problem with, yeah, I have no problem with, I like this, that the whole board doesn't have to get involved with every little thing, because that would slow down the progress as well as, you know, tax us. My question is, and I'm just wondering this, is should the president be involved in these? Is that normal for a project?
Megan?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
but it
Megan
just seems
has,
to me that you know,
Megan's
the
gonna try and
president,
answer.
having been elected by the board. Okay.
Yeah, Megan.
What will typically happen is that all of these change orders, or when these come up, and if it's something small that just gets reviewed by Kathy or Tim and approved to move forward, we're going to then, I'll recap everything at one of our design steering committee meetings, which right now we're having about every other week or so, just to expedite selections and things for the contractors. So we'll review everything at the committee level. All of the change orders need to be signed by Caitlin, the board president, because she executed the construction contract. So Caitlin will know everything. She might know more than she even wants to know, because we'll give her a little, you know, background on things before we have her just sign off. But so there'll be sort of a system of checks and balances, so that at the committee level, we'll review and then it'll go to Caitlin.
And also Barry, on part of our bylaws, the board president is de facto on all committees. So if, you know, I could be available during the day, I could take an hour off from work to participate in a meeting. Should there be, you know, something pretty significant, a change order that was being presented, you know, I could absolutely, you know, as de facto on all committees, be involved in that way. But yes, before I sign anything, I get a pretty good rundown of what it is that's going on. So, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
You said what I was going to say about being a de facto board member, committee member, but the other element is that when Megan and or Turner do regular budget updates, as Megan did at the beginning of tonight's meeting, you will also see a summary of the net total of change orders in each contract. And so that way you'll have a sense of where we are along the path as well, even if you didn't specifically, you as a board member, if you weren't on the committee, see every single line item, you'd know where we are, and you could certainly ask questions then about how we arrived at those totals.
So thank you. So
Thank you.
what we can do before, yes, Barbara.
In light of the language, unless Paul could maybe help us with the language to respond to Mark's question, could we just not at this meeting take care of the change orders, with the board resolution? But if Paul could help us with that language, I think we could accomplish everything in one fell swoop.
Yeah, I mean, I have the aggregate not to exceed, and we can choose, and we know that it's, I'd like to use the in budget 500,000. So we could put a dollar amount on the aggregate at this point if you also desired, and that way we wouldn't have to come back in December. It's just a matter of what that would be. Paul, is there something you think is comfortable or kind of standard?
I would set it at 250,000. And certainly at that point, you can renew it to extend it beyond that if we see we've used that, but still have plenty of contingency. But it would prevent us in the situation where a number of small change orders were approved that in aggregate got you past half of your contingency. So this is referring to, as Megan was saying, the minor change orders approved on the committee level. You obviously know of the bigger ones that are brought directly to the board as a whole.
Okay, Barbara.
Would that be, let's see, $0 to $10,000 was recommended for just Tim's signature? And, Tim and Kathy.
Yeah, it says building committee chair / library director.
All right, and then 10 to 40,000 was the design committee.
That was, it says building committee authorization. So we have a building and grounds committee, but we also have a design steering committee. And I believe this would fall under the design steering committee. So that includes Peter. Yes, Tim.
I just want to say that I understand that building committee chair / library director to mean or, not and. I believe the intent of these small change orders is to keep things moving and not slow us down. And maybe Megan and Paul feel differently. They have more experience, maybe Kirk. But I think having either Kathy or myself be responsible for a $1,000 to $10,000 change order, I think the idea is keep moving. Don't wait for a meeting that happens every 2 weeks.
I concur.
Okay, so we've pulled right in Barbara.
I guess I'm just a little reluctant just to have one person making those decisions, even though I respect both people, but just with Tim and Kathy. Kathy would be the board representative. Tim, was the administrative representative. I like the idea of having not the or, but the two people involved. I think even just a phone call, it can't be that difficult to, to look over something that's being recommended.
So and that's easy for all of us to say, as we're not the people doing it. So Kathy, what is your comfort level as the chair? Do you prefer that it is an and? So the onus is not solely on you, but it's a joint decision?
It probably would be good to be a joint decision since I'm not on site and Tim is. So I mean, I can certainly visit the site, but I'm not there every day like Tim is. So maybe the two of us, I think we can easily communicate through phone calls, texts, or whatever, we can even get together. So I don't have any problem with it being the both of us.
Okay. So that's all right. So Kathy feels comfortable with it being both. Brian, you came off mute.
Can I ask a quick question? What's the committee that's doing this again? This is the Building and Grounds Committee?
It should be the design steering committee.
Who is on that committee?
So let's
see. It's there are 3 board members on it. Me, Richard, and Peter, and there's various other people on it.
I guess I would like, obviously I'm good with everything except for I would like maybe a different committee to do it, only in so much as this is, these are huge financial changes that we're making, and it's really entirely, in my mind, a board decision to make. So, and the design steering committee, while having a couple of board members, I think has a lot more of other people in it. To me, it seems like these should be entirely board decisions.
Brian, so the committee list that I have that was adopted has the ad hoc design committee for GPL expansion only involving board members at this point. So at the annual meeting I guess it was the September meeting, when we adopted the committees, that list had been reduced to only board members.
And who are those board members again? I'm sorry.
That is Kathy Barber, Peter Hubbard, and Richard Rubin.
So we have 3 people making those change orders, as opposed to like a normal committee of 5?
Yes, Tim.
According to our bylaws, only the board members on the committee have a vote.
Okay, so regardless of which committee was in effect, it would only be the board members that have a vote. Yes, Paul.
Brian, I just want to be clear too. We're only talking about change orders up to certain amounts. There's an established hierarchy. So that committee wouldn't have authorization to process, for example, an $83,000 change order as we just did with the board. These are for things that are limited in value in order to not hold up the project for a board meeting every time.
I follow you. All right. So yeah, I guess if everyone else is good with a 3-person committee doing it as opposed to the normal 5, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, according to our bylaws, we can have a 3-person committee.
And I would imagine for the most part, this question might be for Paul or Megan. The decisions are kind of clear cut. I mean, you have a recommendation, and I would imagine most times you go with the recommendation. So I'm good with a 3-person committee.
Okay.
And again, anything significant in terms of number or significant change of scope would come to the entire board regardless.
Yeah, I follow.
So, okay.
And also we're vetting things too. We're reviewing the values that are submitted by contractors to make sure they're fair. And that this is
before they're presented
to the committee, that we make sure that's a valid claim, that the numbers are fair and accurate, and then we bring it to the committee and explain it.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you guys.
Barbara.
Just have a quick follow-up. The recommended 250,000, that would be 50% of our contingency. I guess I'd be more comfortable with it just being a 2-person decision, that would be maybe reduced a little bit to 175, 150, and because then, and it can always be bumped up, but to give away, half of your contingency to multiple small deals may not be the wisest thing. It's just a thought.
I wouldn't be asking for the change orders unless they were necessary to the project. I mean, it's not like we're giving away money. That's what my understanding is, that what the contingency money is for necessary changes. And we're just, this is just a way of just being expedient with it, just so that the board doesn't have to meet all the time to have figure out, to vote on $1,000 change. So, I mean, that's the only thing that's going on here. It's not like we're spending extra money. I mean, it's just a way of doing it so that the board doesn't have to meet all the time to consider small changes. That's all.
Paul, you had input on this?
I agree. I was going to say essentially what Kathy just said. You're exactly right, Kathy. And it relates to unforeseen conditions or situations where we have to address something. If it were what's called an added value change order, something that the library decided they wanted to do an extra thing. Let's say the committee decided we want to put a window seat under that window. Those are the types of things that would come back probably to the board anyway, even if they're small amounts, because those are choices about extra money to spend. Whereas Kathy said, what we're talking about in order to keep things moving are decisions that have to be made to keep the contractors moving so they're not being delayed.
Marcia, you're on mute.
Trying to understand this. If we're talking about $0 to $10,000 with Kathy and Tim.
Yes.
An aggregate of $250, not to exceed an aggregate of $250 overall.
Correct.
Overall. Okay. And then we're talking about the whole design committee from $10,001 to $40,000. Is that correct so far?
Correct.
And are we putting an aggregate on that?
Yes, the aggregate, I believe, is for all the applies to all of these limits, right, Paul? That would be how you do it. So in general, there's an aggregate for the total of the change orders that we'll get to, and then revisit all of this when we get there. So it would be something like the Library Board of Trustees authorize and approve changes to the contractual amounts owed to the prime contractors for alterations, deletions, or additions to their work in connection with the library's capital improvement projects in accordance with the following. When necessary to do so, to prevent a delay in the work on the projects, and the Board of Trustees authorizes the Executive Director to execute such documents as are necessary to effectuate such changes in accordance with the provisions of the library's contract and its prime contractors. Not with an aggregate not to exceed $250,000. And with the authorization levels of $1,000 to $10,000 for the building, the Design Steering Committee Chair, Kathy, which was just Design Steering Committee Chair in case that changes, and the Library Director, $10,001 to $40,000 to the Design Steering Committee, and anything above $40,001 goes to the Board of Trustees.
So the aggregate applies to $1,000 to $40,000.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what I wasn't clear about. The aggregate applies for the first two categories. And so anything over $40,001, even if we have to call a special meeting, requires the whole board to vote on it.
That is correct.
Okay, and with respect to the second level, it's a 3-member committee, so they can spend the money as long as vote yes.
That is correct.
Okay.
A majority of the committee, right?
Well, that's 2 people.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted, everyone knows that. I just wanted to say the obvious, but I wanted to make it clear that we all understood that. Now, is there
But then it's not unanimous, I guess, is what I was. It's a majority of the committee vote.
Yeah. And the whole committee is 3, so a majority
Yes.
would be 2. Okay.
Exactly.
All right, so then when we get to, and this information will seep out. Did Chris recommend at board meetings that report be made by the committee, the design committee, and also director, was there a recommendation that the board ratify those expenditures? The only reason may not be necessary, but we are responsible to the public. And I wouldn't want to leave Kathy without the board, in fact, being aware of it and not approving it, but ratifying it. If Chris is comfortable not having that done, I'm not going to argue, she's our outside counsel. I'm just saying for the protection of everybody, once it's explained, because it'll come up during regular board meetings, perhaps we want to have the board ratify that.
So the good news is, well, I don't know. We won't have to know that until the next meeting. So that gives us a little bit of time to figure out the answer to this question. That your question is excellent, but it doesn't directly have any impact on the resolution before us.
No, it does not. I'm just putting it on because it protects the members of the committee.
Does. So I will just get a recommendation from Chris on that. Barry.
Sure, because basically the board is delegating the responsibility of these expenditures. Because it is a board responsibility, we're just delegating.
So I'll ask Chris. I have my notepad. Re-ratifying the expenditures. And we will figure that out, and I will have an answer for you and possibly some expenditures to ratify at the next board meeting, depending on her answer.
Yeah. It doesn't mean to veto. It means simply to recognize.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Barry.
Okay, just want to clarify. The proposal is for Tim and Kathy for $1 to 1,000 or 10,000?
10,000.
Because we're saying 10,000, but it's written here down on the report as 1,000. So I just want to make sure we're talking to.
That was a typographical error on my part because it.
Okay, so it's 10,000.
10,000. So I'm sorry, I made a mistake on the minutes.
Okay. No problem. I just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page as everybody else. Thank you.
Good point.
All right. So, is there a motion to approve these authorization levels that I have presented and move forward with the aggregate not to exceed 250,000? Barbara. Motion by Barbara. Excellent. Do I have a second by Marcia? I got Marcia first, Peter.
No worries.
But so what I will do is we'll do a quick roll call. Richard. I think that was a yes from Richard. Kathy?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Peter is a yes. Oh, that's my name. And I say yes. And Marcia. Yes for Marcia. All right. Unanimous at 7:20 p.m. Kathy, I will send you the verbiage for the minutes that Chris has sent to me.
Hey, Caitlin, can I make a point of order?
Yes.
Is it possible in the future? I'm more of a visual reader. I don't do as well with the audio. To get the verbiage, even if it's just sent out in the chat before we move on it, just because that was such a long motion, I had trouble following it.
I would love that. I didn't get that motion till we were discussing it.
Yeah, just it's a big help to me. But yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will do my best to get that out. It just didn't get to my inbox till just recently. So that solves the change orders. So that's done. Is there anything else from our construction team and architects? Excellent. Thank you all. You are wonderful. That concludes a lengthy section of our agenda. So thank you guys. You can take care and have a good night at this point. So I want to go back to the Marcia. Yes, you're on mute. Oh, you were just saying goodbye. Okay, I got it. That's nice of you. So I want to go back to the public input session. Richard in the chat to everyone said there are multiple advisory opinions on the Committee for Open Government website, which support that commenters do not need to publicly identify themselves. The theory being that since attendance by the public at the meeting cannot be restricted or based on residence or other factors, to restrict public comment to certain criteria would be non-justifiable. And he provided an example of one of these opinions. He said he's not supporting it necessarily, but he's just pointing out they exist and are consistent. And it is a link to the New York Open Government and his advisory opinion 2717. And Jason has responded that this opinion to adopt reasonable rules to govern its own proceedings from 1997 has more to do with residency and encouraging participation. Do we have something else to base input from staff? They should be communicating with Tim. It seems more of a personal issue than public opinion.
Personnel. Well, that's the issue with WebEx and not being able to be in person and talk. But I meant a personnel issue. Like these are usually things that you deal with on a personnel level.
Sure. And I think that the staff are members of the public as well as staff, and they did want the board to hear directly from them. They have a right to do so. I also found an advisory opinion 3295 that also says that they do not, the member of the public the board does not, okay, so they cannot be required to identify themselves. That it could be seen as the public body limiting the public's ability to speak. So if you all would like, you can read those advisory opinions. Barry, if it's quick, this meeting will take forever. If you all want to do your own research on advisory opinions, we have a lot to get through.
Seems like we're only getting one side of the, we're only getting opinions that agree with what certain board members want right now.
And I've provided advisory opinions in the past, which were disregarded. So just bear in mind, we seem to pick and choose what advisory opinions we want to follow.
Correct. So what I will do is I will reach out to the library's attorney, who represents us, and Jason has said agreed in the chat.
Agreed.
I will reach out to the attorney, and I will say, what is your opinion on this? And then going forward, we will follow what our attorney says, so that it is not one board member reading advisory opinions. But we have to move on in the agenda, or we will be here all night. So
what is this side chat that you keep referring to?
So
you keep referring to it chatting and side chatting?
Oh, Barry, you'd love it. It's awesome. It's on the right-hand side.
So
well, what is it? I mean,
it is a function of WebEx. That there is a chat feature that you can communicate with particular members or as a committee or everyone.
We've all been talking about you, Barry.
It's a WebEx.
Yeah, I've sent you multiple messages. Now I know why you didn't hit me back.
It's a WebEx feature, and we need to move on in the agenda, or we will be here all night long.
I just had no idea what it was.
Richard.
5 seconds. I would just like to suggest that the policy committee draft a policy on public comment. That was another theme in the advisory opinions. So I don't know if we need that in the form of a motion or whether whatever we need to do that.
We will, when we go over committee reports, we can task the policy committee. Tony, the treasurer's report, please, if you will.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Similar to prior months, my process to review the financial statements are to look at the income statement, balance sheet, and check register at the same time, and make sure that checks and balances that are appropriate in those documents are taking place, and that the items in the check register are reflected accordingly in the balance sheet statement. A few things to notice. There are some big transactions, particularly the tax levy was received. That's reflected in the revenue statement. Also ties into the balance sheet by reflecting current assets, cash, and also on the other side of the balance, the equation, the equity section, overall net revenue. A few items to note on the balance sheet beyond just the cash account. You'll notice that there was a decrease in equipment or prepaid property and fixed equipment. This is due to the acquisition of purifiers and computer. In addition, on the second page of the balance sheet, historically we've been tracking deferred assets with cost. You'll notice that some of those have been in process. That's done to reflect the state going live with aspect spend expense. Again, those are both in agreement accounting standards. Going back to the statement, the revenues are pretty self-explanatory. The big item was just the tax levy. The majority of the expenses seem to fall in line with the budget or similar amounts per months. I do want to note a couple items. One item that was over budget was the auditor. Audit library did have an audit recently. $8,000 was just expense accounting firm that services that's supported by the check register. The next item is a few rows down, $11,000 for building maintenance supplies. This seems to be made up items noted in the check register.
Tony, can you speak up a little bit? There's people that are having trouble hearing you.
Absolutely, yes. I apologize.
Thank you.
Yep. The other item on the income statement is the building maintenance and supplies. It's $11,000. It exceeded the budget of about $2,000. And that's made up largely of some of the items mentioned: air purifiers, computers, PPE supplies, and various other materials. So in conclusion, the income statement seems to reflect the expenses that were noted as written checks on the check register, and the items did flow correctly from the income statements to the balance sheets in the respective areas. So they all seem to tie together. Nothing seemed to jump out as a concern or an error. Everything seems to be matching and balancing. Are there any questions or comments? If that's the case, and thank you for your attention, and have a great evening.
I'm muted. So thank you, Tony. Is there a motion to adopt the treasurer's report for October 2020 and the check register for November 2020? Noreen?
I make the motion to accept the treasurer's report
And the check register?
and the check register.
Excellent. Motion by Noreen. Is there a second? Marcia, second by Marcia. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstentions?
Same.
Against? Motion passes unanimously at 7:31. So committee reports. Kathy, the buildings and ground and long range planning.
Well, I think we've pretty much gone over it. We had talked about the project budget, the same presentation that the board just heard, and all the change orders, the in particular lighting that we just voted on, and there were a few change orders discussed at the most recent meeting, which was yesterday. Actually, one was a credit, eliminating the door canopies and installing radiant heat pads for a $5,500 credit. And then there were some skylight framing revisions for a $6,000 addition, and then there were some proposed change orders that didn't have dollar amounts yet. Water reducing admixture for new slabs, and a radiant system at the entry plaza area. Both of those didn't have dollar amounts yet. Another thing we did was we selected bathroom tiles from 2 potential color schemes. The committee decided on blue gray for the main bathrooms and some more colorful tile work for the bathroom in the children's area. And the next thing we're going to be doing is a lot of things involving colors of ceiling tiles, light fixtures, carpet colors, and styles. And just what was shown to us looked like somewhat complicated, because there's different areas for different ages of children in the new edition. So there are going to be some design choices for different areas, and we're going to be looking at that. I think they're going to be available samples on Monday the 23rd, and then the next meeting will be on Tuesday the 24th at 11 a.m. The reason for the quick turnaround is they need to have choices made so that they can continue their work. So it was important for the design committee to meet to determine what the color scheme would be, so they could get going with it. So that's pretty much what we've been doing.
Great. Barbara, I see you. Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question, Kathy. The canopies that were going to be over the doorways, they're suggesting that we don't do that. If you have a great snowfall, the radiant floor, I just wonder, or the sidewalk, if that would be sufficient to clear it. I know we had problems not having a canopy over some of our emergency exits in the back of the Helderberg room facing Mercy Care. And were there reasons why they decided not to put the canopies on?
Well, I think that's probably a question for the construction people. I really don't know. I know that maybe Tim has something to add about the radiant. We talked a lot about radiant heat, and I know you were a fan.
Well, sure, but Barbara's question is really more about the canopies, and the way that Megan put it to me was that the canopies are generally not as effective. Snow falls not down, but also blows sideways and so forth, and dollars more than the radiant heat pads. And no, they're a foot of before we can open. I think
Just a follow up to that, it's
Sure.
not the snowfall itself. It's not the snowfall itself. It's the snow
moisture.
coming off the roof. It's the snow coming off the roof and sliding off the roof that's dumped down, and then the radiant thing, I don't think could handle something like that. That's why the canopy protects the entranceway to a degree.
right? These aren't primary entrance-ways. They're like emergency exits, fire doors. So maybe that helps a little bit. Like, these are not places where we expect people going in and out unless there's an emergency.
But the idea of emergency is that you have that door and it's free of snow. If you could just at least ask them, because
Sure,
I know
well,
that was,
But we can't open by law unless they're clear. So the only thing that I think that rightly concerned about is that snow slides off a roof onto one of these pads while we're open. And keep in mind, we have a flat roof. So it seems kind of remote to me. But I will ask.
Thank you, Tim. Great questions, Barbara. Kathy, we discussed the change order authority and we passed a resolution. I see also a committee charge as needing some sort of resolution. Can you or Tim enlighten me on what that is again?
I'm not sure what you mean as far as a committee charge. I mean, I know what we do.
Yeah, Tim, can you remind me?
Sure. So the idea is do so far what we've been asked to do by Megan, but if we could create a charge from the board to the committee, we would then know what we are supposed to do. I could ask her, or by her I mean Megan or Patrick Fitzgerald, our construction lawyer, to give a sample committee charge if you'd like. There's so many things where we've needed verbiage coming up to this meeting that one slipped into second or third place. So we don't have a proposal.
I would love the idea of getting some language from Patrick. If you would please do that, then the board can really define what that committee does, since it's not one of our predefined committees in the bylaws. And, you know, it's sort of changed from its original function at this point. So we'll get that. So we don't need a motion at this time, and we will get that. Kathy, are you all set? Can we move to finance?
Yep, I'm all set.
Thank you. Brian.
Thank you. So we met earlier this month, and we had a good meeting. We discussed two things: the investment strategy of the tax levy, and we talked about the library getting the bond proceeds. So first off, the investment strategy has slightly changed since the meeting. The committee was proposing that we invest the levy. We invest $2.4 million in CDs and $600,000 in a money market account with Capcom. This is also by Carol's suggestion. It was not entirely us. So we all very, very highly value Carol's opinion. But there has been a change. Carol did some research. No longer CDs just are not being offered right now. Most banks are flush with cash, and there's just no CDs to be found. So as an alternative, she is suggesting we invest in treasury bonds. So let me pull up. Carol was kind enough to make some notes for me. So
great. So I will just remind everyone to please mute your lines if you are not speaking. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Thanks.
So we're proposing investing the $2.4 million in U.S. Treasury notes. These are insured by the U.S. Treasury, backed by the federal government, as opposed to the FDIC. So there's no risk. And the interest rate is about 0.4 to 0.8. It's something. It's not nothing. So that's our investment strategy for the levy. So also, we got either or in the process of getting the bond from the school district. I believe Carol said it's like at the bank, but may not be in our account. But either way, we're about to have $6 million more, which we need to invest. And I asked for Carol to come to us with a strategy for investing it, and we briefed me before the meeting with the strategy, which I'm now presenting to the board. Likewise, we're suggesting investing $4 million in these treasury notes, and the remainder in a cash account, so 2.5 million in money market cash account. So those are kind of our two suggestions. Carol, did you have anything to add? Did I hit the highlights? Did I do it justice?
Yeah, you did great.
All right.
Thank you.
So we're probably going to need two motions, one for doing the tax levy and one for our investment of it's actually not, for those of you who are really interested, it's actually not a bond, it's a BAN, which is a bond anticipation note. It's for a shorter term, but that's really more for the finance people and not as relevant to everyone else. Just know that we have $6 million from the, or $6.5 million from the bond proceeds. So, so I guess, does anyone have any comments before I propose a motion? Okay, with that, I will propose a motion to invest from the tax levy $2.4 million in U.S. Treasury notes and $600,000 in a money market account with Capcom.
All right, motion by Brian. Is there a second? Barbara. Second by Barbara. Is there any discussion board members would like to have before we vote? I see none. So this is a big one, a lot of money. I'm going to do a quick roll call just to be certain. Richard.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Mark. Mark.
Yes.
Yes from Mark. Noreen.
Yes.
Brian, it's your motion, but yes. Jason.
Yes.
Caitlin, yes. Peter. Yes. And Marcia. Yes. All right. That passes unanimously at 744.
Okay. The second motion, and this one I would just, I know we didn't discuss the last one, and we certainly didn't need to because it was almost identical to the previous one, but this one we might want to just, kind of talk through. So this is for the bond. This is going to what's paying the contractors. So my motion is to invest $4 million in U.S. Treasury notes and $2.5 million in an insured cash account, a money market insured cash account. Is that the correct terminology, Carol? Okay, I saw the nod. So that's the motion I'm making. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Brian, I get to ask that. Hold on. So second by Jason, motion by Brian.
So before we move forward, I guess I just wanted, I've already asked these questions of Carol. I just want to make sure that we have a chance to. Carol, we feel confident that with this investment strategy, we'll be able to pay the contractors as the process goes along, correct?
Yeah, so what I did was I spoke with Jim Ferranda from Capcom, and I presented to him the timeline that Turner Construction has given us. And with that in mind, he now has a picture as to where the cash flow projection will be for the duration of the project. So he can now invest or purchase those treasury bonds so that the duration of time that we will need to make them mature, the time frame for them to mature, should meet the projected timeline. That is also the reason for keeping 2.5 million of it in a insured cash count, so that if for some reason, because things are being a little bit expedited, we need cash a little sooner, we will have that money to fall back on. Treasury bills tend to be very liquid, so there's never, if we do, this really expedites quickly or moves quicker than we really anticipate, we can always liquefy those assets. There's no penalty, it's just at the point of time when we were to make them liquid, if we had purchased them at certain basis point and now they're either above or below, then we can take a hit. So that's really the only negative side of using this for treasury. But I think
Caitlin,
I answered the question.
Sorry, I have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are those treasury bills going to be laddered, and do you know to what extent they're going to be laddered? Like every 4 weeks, 8 weeks?
They will be laddered, and we're hoping to ladder them out as far as 6 months, or maybe even a little bit further than that. Again, based on the timeline that Turner is giving us. So the shortest term, I'm not sure if it's going to come back with maybe a 3-month term, because right now we're not spending a huge amount of money. They don't have that outlay. I think we would be safe with probably the minimum term being about 3 months out. And then he'll ladder them out so that they will mature on almost a monthly basis.
Different times.
That's how we've done the CDs in the past. When we've done our investments, we've always had them kind of rolling on a monthly basis to cover expenses.
Okay. Thank you.
Marcia?
So quickly, the only risk really is in the T-bill investment, even though it's laddered, it would be a timing risk if we had to sell at a loss.
Correct. That would be, but that is why we are keeping, the 2.5 million.
Right. No, I recognize that. Yeah. So based on the timeline, this makes sense. So if there was a catastrophic problem and we needed to spend the money more quickly than we thought, the only risk would be the treasury and market timing, really.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more questions or further discussion on the motion on the floor? All right. Seeing none, we'll go into a vote. And again, large amounts of money, roll call for the sake of simplicity. Richard?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Barbara? Yes. Barry?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jason?
Sorry about that. Yes.
Thank you, Jason. Caitlin, yes. Peter?
Yes.
And Marcia? Yes. Okay. That passes unanimously at 7:50.
So I got 2 other items on this agenda, but I'm not familiar with them, or definitely signatures with checks. I don't know if Capcom's certificate of deposit I covered, but I don't know if someone else wants to jump in on those.
Tim, yes.
Okay, I think we covered the Capcom. I think that was related to the investment. Kara can chime in if I'm wrong about that. The signatures on checks issue, we're not ready to resolve. We're very, very close. But you may remember that in March, the board passed a resolution to give me single signing authority for checks, which had traditionally been signed by 2 people. But people were not in a mood to get together at that time. And we think that it might be return to the previous system, which was either me or Margaret or the top 3 positions on the board, president, vice president, and secretary, would have the authority to sign checks. Chris Lanchanton needed to know where that authority came from, where that practice came from. So Margaret and Jenna have been searching old board meeting minutes, and I believe they're back to 1978 with occasional references to it. So trying to resolve it and ask Chris why. One of the things Chris had given us was, rather than trying to fix old authorities, just write new resolution, and that's what we have asked her to do. But we only asked her to do it about 4 or 4:30 this afternoon, so we don't have it yet. The effect of not dealing with this right now is that I can sign the checks as long as you guys remain comfortable with that. Your authority from March still stands. There was no time limit on it.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So that is in the hands of Chris, and that happened this afternoon. Thank you for looking back to the 70s, and that's due diligence beyond what is even expected at this time. So really impressive.
Gotta thank Margaret and Jenna. They're quite a team.
So excellent. So we'll wait for language from Chris on that to go forward. So hopefully we can expect that December meeting. Personnel, labor management, Barry. You are muted.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are
Sorry.
unmuted and we can hear you.
Okay, got a couple of things. And I don't believe any of this falls under executive session. If I'm wrong, correct me. But the first thing is the contracts with the unions. They were agreed to earlier in this year, many months ago. And since I became the chair of the Personnel and Labor Relations Committees, I've tried to get copies of those contracts. However, I keep getting told that the unions have never signed the contracts, and until they do, the contracts are not final. And I spoke with Chris again this week, and again, I was told that it's close, but I mean, that's what I've been getting told for weeks and weeks. On Monday of this week, when I asked, I was told that a new issue had arisen and that the issue would be brought up tonight, and then I'll learn what it is. To me, I have a problem with that, is that, you know, as the chair of the Board of Trustees, Personnel and Labor Relation Committee, which is responsible for the contracts, first of all, I should have the contracts, and if not, I should be, and the whole committee needs to be kept up to date when the situation changes and a problem arises or whatever the situation is. Okay. Should I now go into the MOAs or?
So I agree that we need those contracts with the unions. You know, absolutely.
You know, especially as more and more situations arise, like in the you know, the library employee comments tonight. There's a lot of things that you know that we need to have the contracts to refer to. It just is very difficult without it.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Sure. Well.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll talk to the CSEA representatives and make sure that those are finally gotten.
Okay, thank you. And now the second thing are the MOAs. Last month they had been discussed in executive session, but I don't think that they need to be at this point. Am I correct?
About the MOAs.
Yes,
Um,
the two MOAs on the vacation accruals.
I believe at the last meeting, the board directed the committee to meet, and that we will be ratifying those tonight. Yes.
Okay, so what the board had done last month was direct Chris Lanchanton to write up the MOAs based on the criteria that we had presented at the meeting last month. She did that, one for the union, Unit 1, and one for the library director. They were one page, well, one was a little over a page. Basic MOAs, no, according to Chris, they're standard for anything like that. I reviewed them. I did not have a full committee meeting in the interest of making sure that they were done for tonight so we could vote on them. However, again, according to the attorney, according to Chris, the union approves them first, the union signs them, and then we approve it. And she was going to give them to the union on Monday. And I have not gotten any feedback yet that they have been signed. So since we're doing this as a goodwill gesture to the union, I would think that they would want to have signed them and gotten them to us to approve tonight, but they haven't.
Okay, Tim, do you have any further insights on those contracts or the MOAs about vacation?
Sure. I've actually believe that the issue that Chris is trying to resolve is only with the Unit 2 contract, and that the Unit 1 contract is in fact signed. And we shouldn't really use the word contract. These are a different set of MOAs that update the existing contract, which you guys do have. So you don't have the MOA, which is the result of the recent labor negotiations, but you do have the contract.
But
Union,
the MOA changes the contract significantly in certain areas.
Sure, definitely
And without
true.
the MOA signed, if we don't have a current contract.
Sure, that I don't know that a lawyer would agree with that. We've got 50 people work. I think we have a contract.
I think the contract is valid as it exists, and if there is a change in the MOA, that is not in effect yet until it gets passed. So Barry, if you'll just let
So then
Tim
technically
finish.
they should not be getting higher salaries and everything else?
Barry, can you just let Tim explain, please?
Okay.
And then we'll
Once again,
we'll see if there's more questions after.
the issue that I'm aware of has to do with Unit 2. There is no issue with Unit 1. I believe Chris Lanchanton is trying to deliver both of those finalized MOUs at the same time to you. If you'd like either us to direct her to deliver them one at a time, or Barry to do that directly, that's fine. The Unit 1 can be resolved. The Unit 2 has to do with, okay, I'm going to try to do this without violating anyone.
It seems like we've lost Tim.
Of the unit.
Well, no, you broke up for a minute. You have a bad connection.
Now,
Yes.
so there was a finalized contract or MOU presented to administration by CSEA. CSEA is not the bad guy in the case of either Unit 1 or Unit 2. I raised the definition of the word supervisor and asked Chris Lanchanton to communicate with Charles Barley on the Unit 2 contract, and My understanding is that she has been in touch with him. I don't know if they've resolved it, but that's what's holding up both MOUs. And as I said a minute ago, certainly get you, I believe, immediately. On the related matter, I don't know that it matters who signs the MOU about vacation carryover first. If Chris Lanchanton is saying that, maybe that's true, but it needs to be signed by both parties to be in effect. So I don't know why we wouldn't take advantage of tonight's meeting. It's a simple document. I believe Caitlin has it. I believe Barry has it. To just approve it. We've been given resolution language, and we could change that language to say subject to the document being signed. But my personal point of view on that, I'm sorry if it's out of line, but it's ceremony. When the documents are signed seems irrelevant to me.
So I will weigh in here because I asked Chris about this as well. And she said that CSEA needs to get the agreement approved and signed by the unit before the board approves it.
Okay,
so that
I was wrong.
Yeah, Chris told me that on Tuesday the 10th. It looks like right now we don't have any. We don't have the MOAs for the board to approve. Is that correct, Barry? We do not have the MOAs vacation accruals for the board to approve?
Correct, because as you said, you spoke with Chris last week. I spoke to her this week. She repeated the same information to me that they need to sign it first, and then we would sign it second.
Okay. So
to me, the MOAs were written exactly the way the board had directed her to write them. Again, it's just, but according to her, we can't sign it and approve them until the union does.
So, okay. So it looks like there is now no action on that. And you said there was another matter that someone had, said that was going to be discussed. Yes, Tim. Okay, so Tim is having connection issues.
Yeah, now we could, it depends on the board, we could approve Tim's. But I think it's better to approve both MOAs at the same time.
We have not been told by Chris. The last direction I got is that they need to be signed by the unions. I have not heard from her that they have been signed by the unions and that we can move forward. So it would be my feeling not to do so until we've been given the direction from her, since our last direction was that we can't. So now, Barry, you said someone told you there was another matter to be discussed regarding personnel and that you would hear about it later?
No, I think what it was is what Tim brought up there, what the issue was about the definition of supervisor.
Supervisor, okay, yep, so related specifically to that contract. Okay, or that MOA.
What I will add is, if I could just add one more thing, since we're not voting on them tonight, that gives us time to get them out to every trustee, so all the trustees will be ready. Assuming there's no changes to them, or the changes would be very minor, I can get them out to all the trustees so that everyone has it to review in front of them.
Great. Thank you, Barry. Somebody's giving me a little feedback. It looks like they just called in. Is that you, Tim?
It is, and I will uncall it.
Policy Committee, Noreen.
Hi, everyone. I have just a couple of things. The Policy Committee has been going over the bylaws. Wow, those bylaws. But it's been interesting. It's been good. We have a really good committee. So these are the things we want to clarify. One of the things that we were looking into was the merging of committees. The first one was the possible merging of buildings and grounds and the long-range planning committee. When we talked about it and we got feedback from the chair and people within those, the chairs of those committees and Tim, and we discussed it, we thought that we should keep it separate for the sole purpose that it seems like building and grounds is different from long-range planning. Right now they're very merged together because of the construction that's going on. But once that construction is over, it seems like, you know, the building and grounds takes care, what I understand is the physical aspects of the building, where long-range planning handles the goals, is my interpretation of it. So we are asking the board if we can keep those separate for those reasons. The other one, the personnel and labor management, we realized that we really can't merge those two for the simple fact that in the bylaws, Article 8, number 2, the labor management meeting is exempt from open meeting law. And because of the sensitive nature of what labor management handles, that those two should stay separate. So if anybody has any feedback, anything they'd like to add regarding what the policy committee, you know, basically came to the consensus to, opposed, against, is it okay to keep them separate? We'd like to hear it.
Yes, Marcia.
Yeah, Noreen, just a point. I think when we got some information from Chris, even though our bylaws say that the Labor Management Committee is not subject to the open meetings law, she said the only committee that shouldn't be subject to the open meetings law is the Audit Committee. So if I remember
yes, yes, you are right, Marcia. You are right.
No, we wanted to keep it separate anyway. But it wasn't because of the current bylaws.
Yes,
because
thank you.
In our revision of the bylaws, I think we were changing that to the Audit Committee.
Yes.
Chris said that the only committee which the open meetings law would allow to be closed and not open to the public was Audit.
Thank you, Mark. You're very right.
Okay. I just wanted to make
yeah,
sure.
No. That's a good distinction because we just made those edits. You're
we
very right.
Agreed we had recommended not to merge them because they do different things.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't because of the open meetings law.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so Noreen, policy committee is meeting. You've spoken with Chris. She's been involved very much so, it seems like, in this, which is excellent. You've come to the conclusion that the committees that we had previously combined should not be combined, and we should be working in towards our bylaws and what they say. So, what else are you looking at in those? Is there anything?
Well, the next thing that I have is not regarding the committees. It's a line in the bylaws. So should there be a motion concerning the committees, or should we put the next one doesn't have anything to do with this, so I don't know how to proceed.
So we shouldn't need a motion because we're not changing the bylaws.
Okay.
We just asked you to look into it. If the board should change the bylaws, or if we need to make a change to a little bit more about the way that we operate.
Okay.
So we don't need a motion. There's no change. I would just ask that those committee chairs get familiar with those committees and what the charges are according to the bylaws. They do consist of the same members in case we were going to combine them. So please, when you're scheduling meetings, just be clear about which committee is meeting. And if you need to meet, back to back, that's fine as well. But just make it clear for public notice which committee is meeting at what time.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think that's all that requires.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And the last one is when we were, let me get to my notes. So for Article 4, number 2, regarding meeting attendance, we were thinking of adding a line. And this one has to do with, it's in the minutes, so bear with me while I read it. It says, we were thinking of adding such attendance may be in person or by any means approved by the board. Mind you, this is not the final. It was just that in light of the pandemic, things have changed. We're not meeting in person anymore, obviously. And right now we're meeting via video. And we were wondering whether we should put something in there to represent what's going on now. Not that we're going to leave by any means approved. We wanted to know what those means are. Video, phone, and if we were to put this line in, and by the way, I'm sorry, let me just refresh. This is for, if I could just read the line for clarification, whoever's out there listening. It's meeting, again, it's Article 4, number 2A. Each trustee shall attend board meetings and shall participate in at least 2 of its standing committees. So that's already there. And then we were thinking of adding another line to that. Such attendance may be in person or by any means approved by the board, but we wanted to define what does that mean. So we kind of were wondering if we can get feedback from board members. And again, would that stay for now during the pandemic? And then once we're done with the pandemic and life can resume back to normal, would we take this out, add it as, I don't want to say addendum, I know that's not the word, but as something, what's the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure, but I have a question.
Yeah.
So did Chris give any indication of, the current executive orders that are in place or were allowing us to do this? And so I think the executive orders and the state laws supersede our bylaws. So are people asking for a definition of, what is the change to the bylaws that is being proposed, I guess, is what I'm confused about. So, because it says you want the board to define what it means to meet.
I guess you're kind of stating the obvious a little bit. I think when we were, again, this was a lot. This was a lot to take in.
Can I add something? Do you mind?
Who's talking? Is this
Jason?
Oh, Jason, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, when we were discussing it, we just wanted to bring it to the board because there was like a couple of things. I believe one of them was the attendance of what we consider an official board meeting, and then there was some language having to do with how we go about dealing with issues that had problems with attendance and participation. It was, we just wanted to bring it to the board because these were policies that we came up with recently. And I remember us discussing that we weren't going to do the virtual thing, but obviously because of the current situation. But we just wanted to get the board's input as to whether or not going forward when we're no longer in these trying times, will we be going for something that's a hybrid of possibly allowing some people to do remote and in person, and again, we just wanted to discuss the other part of it was the how do you deal with individuals who start missing a lot of meetings. Is that correct, Noreen?
Yes. Thank you. You said it better than I did. Yes.
So I have a terrible question for the policy committee. Aren't you guys supposed to give the board a recommendation on this? So it's
the reason we're bringing it to the board is because we wanted it to be a public. We wanted to bring it to you because, like I said, this was something we recently voted on. The number of meetings that you can miss. And I mean, we didn't want to just like, say like, hey, this is what it is without like, like at least discussing it with you guys. Cause I remember this was a point of contention. Like, this was a vote that, I believe, a lot of people had a lot of input about.
Sure. So I would ask.
We're just looking for input.
So I would say that I would ask that the policy committee makes, that you guys discuss it, come up with what you want that policy to look like, and then present it to the board, and that's when the discussion will happen. I think that's the task of the policy committee, as it stands, is for you guys to get together, write up some policy, have Chris, be involved as much as possible, and then it will be discussed. I don't know if it's necessarily at this point ready for a whole board to just have an open discussion about it. Richard.
Kate, shout me down. I think our main concern was that there was a perception that some people on the board felt that virtual participation in a meeting was not acceptable. Could I just ask in an informal way if there's anyone that feels that way? Because it would help to guide the policy committee as we go back to draft.
I definitely was against it, and I think I still am against it. I mean, if I had my way, I would be at the library right now. That's okay.
Yeah, I was it's Brian. I was previously against it, but quite honestly, the current situation has shown me that the benefits of it. In fact, up to me, I would, I love these virtual meetings. So I've changed my opinion. I was against, now I'm for it for your survey.
I'm in the same boat as Brian. Like, everything has changed. And not just that, I think this is some of the best participation that we've gotten from the board in a while. And so that the, missing board meetings, if you can attend virtually, if it gets more board participation and people attending meetings, then I think it has to be considered. Marcia.
May I make a suggestion for expediency?
Yes.
Noreen has been working very, very in working on revising the bylaws, period. Not only the issues discussed tonight, but some technical changes and some other issues that, at the end of the day, it's going to have to be run by Chris to make sure that we're within the confines of the law, and then presented to the board in toto. And so may I suggest that we continue, the policy committee continue to fulfill its charge to review the bylaws, check with Chris, and then present the bylaws once we feel comfortable with them to the whole board for discussion and
I think that's an excellent recommendation, because we still have some things on the meeting. We've been at this for over 2 hours. Let's not get too into the weeds with the full board on our policy.
I just wanted a very quick poll just to give us a little guidance as we go to draft. So that was.
I think it's still going to be a mixed bag on our board. We have a diverse board.
That's all I wanted.
That tends to show.
To know.
I just want to let Barbara say what she has to say, and then we'll move forward, and I'll read Herb's update.
I just wanted to add that, as most of you know, I've always been in favor of this virtual, the ability to have a virtual meeting. In cases of illness or family circumstances, it allows the person who really wants to be there yet can't be there for some reason. In my experience with other boards that have allowed this for many years now, it works effectively, it's not abused, and I would support it.
Thank you, Barbara.
Hey, Barb, I just wanted to add that you were like really the person, one of the main reasons why I was like, well, let's discuss it, because I knew that you were, passionate about it. I'm still totally against it, but for reasons, but yeah, I really wanted your input, since this was something I knew was important to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm sorry, I have to hard stop at 8:30. I apologize, but I have some family obligations that I have to care for.
Okay, Noreen, you're going to hate me. This is in line with what Richard said earlier. She said, I asked if members of the public are required to identify themselves when giving public comment, can the board require them to do so? She says only if you require it. It's not the law, but since public comment isn't even required, the board can make up whatever rules you want. You should have them in writing and read them at every meeting before people talk. So policy committee, guess what? We need a public comment policy. I'm so sorry. I'll like send you a fruit basket.
I look forward to making this policy.
I like lemons.
Okay.
Lemons. Lots of lemons.
Hey, Kate,
Yes, Mark.
Kate, can you forward whatever you just read to us?
It is
Is it
already in your
already in the work?
inboxes. She replied all to the board.
Got it. Perfect.
So it should be there. UHLS update from Herb Hennings. Let me read what I've got. And I will try to be concise. Let's see. The Upper Hudson Library System Board met virtually on November 11th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m. Arlene Way was sworn in as the new delegate from the Albany City Library and given her committee assignment. The minutes from the prior meeting were approved. UHLS Director Tim Burke reported the organization will make it through the year within the 2020 budget despite cutbacks in state funding. There'll be a 5% flat increase in ULAN fees for the year 2021. This will generate $16,000 to $17,000 in additional funds, and the board voted to accept this. The formulas will be revisited in the future. The Finance Committee reported a balance as of October 31st, 2020 of $377,656. The Services Committee reported out that the Central Library Development Aid budget for the period beginning on January 1, 2021. The Advisory Committee makes recommendations to the Albany Public Library on how to spend the money. There was a 20% cut in aid. The Central Library budget of $160,969 was passed unanimously. Because of the budget cuts, the subscription to Ancestry.com had to be canceled, but if monies are later found, this can be reinstituted. Concerning the 2021 UHLS revised budget, there will be a cut in retiree healthcare payments of 50% rather than the 100% previously anticipated. There will be retirees who will shift to plans of family members. UHLS is changing to an employee healthcare plan that is less expensive without significant losses of services. The cut in pay for UHLS employees will be cut to 7% across the board, and employees will be granted an extra 18 days of time off during the year to make up for this. The budget was approved with one abstention. The meeting was subsequently adjourned. There'll be no December meeting. Respectfully submitted by Herb Hennings, Guilderland delegate to the UHLS board. Thank you, Herb, once again for your diligent service. Brian Best, Foundation.
Okay, they met last week. They didn't really have a ton to discuss. My notes I don't have with me, but yeah, I don't believe they really discussed much of anything. Obviously with COVID, they're not having the gala, which is a bit of a blow. But I think that's about it. Tim, were you there? Am I missing anything?
Well, I would add that they decided to open their own Amazon Smile account and did that subsequent to the meeting, and are promoting it on social media. So that's, to me, the most significant thing I can remember.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. So that should conclude the committee reports. The directors and department heads reports for 2020. Tim, are you including the operational update in that, or are you putting that elsewhere?
I'll do a little pause after I hope to do 2 or 3 minutes of directors and department heads report. Then I'll let you know that that's done and switch over to the operational update, okay?
Thank you.
And then I just want to let everyone know I'm participating by phone now, so that's why you can't see me. We seem to have lost Wi-Fi at the house. The general areas of my work for the month of October were preparing for the construction and actually beginning it, finalizing contracts and insurance. We've had tremendous help from our lawyer, Patrick Fitzgerald, and also from the Tenite Group with the insurance requirements. planning the collections move and the logistics and the contract related to that, finance and construction grant type stuff, and then as our meeting so far tonight reflects, lots of committee meetings as well. I want to congratulate Luann for pulling together a tremendous groundbreaking and thank everyone listening or participating in this call who attended for being there. And just note that a significant event in October was the storm, which destroyed 2 or 3 sheds, and we got a good insurance settlement and were able to buy 2 more. We did spend $11,000, slightly less than 11 of unanticipated expenditure on HEPA air filters to cover the whole building. We think that you're going to see a lot of that in buildings going forward. They're both the cheapest and it's said the most effective way of cleaning the air. We opened Norman Skill Browsing and then eventually closed it as we were moving into the next phase. And then the only other thing I'd like to add is that we've done a lot of tremendous programming in the month of October, quite a bit of which was outside. So we had a Halloween trick-or-treat celebration and pumpkin decorating, and most of these were collaborations with the town in some way. We had the annual Drug Take Back Day, which collected a record 980 pounds of drugs. We had a flu shot clinic. We had an outdoor cooking program. And on the inside side of things, we had a tremendous array of about 8 or 10 total events related to elections, the vote for women, the history of the Electoral College, et cetera. So things that were obviously on people's minds. So I think a nice shout out to the programming people. And that's the end of my director's update. Should we pause there to see if there's any questions? Okay, maybe not. So the operational update, obviously, you know, you guys heard a lot of things from the staff today. I would say that a lot of those comments are very valid and are in the process of beginning to be addressed. You know, it's not just hard to do that stuff, very, very hard to do that stuff, but it's especially hard when you're also flying from one part of the building to another constantly all day long dealing with the construction stuff. We've escalated the construction schedule significantly. I think that's been a good decision, but it's obviously not something we can turn back on. So the first time that I was able to address these kinds of concerns that were read to you guys tonight, and in fact receive these kinds of concerns, was yesterday between 3 and 5 when I met with my department heads. And so one thing that came out of that meeting is that I committed to an every Tuesday morning staff virtual meeting for updates on both construction and coronavirus. There are a lot of other good suggestions in there. I think the December 1st date has always been stated both to you and to the public as a target date. And I believe that we have some due diligence to do in order to make sure that we can move to that phase of services in a way that's safe for everybody. And we've got an offer on the table to have CSEA's health and safety officer survey our plan. We've also asked the Albany County Department of Health to do that and been given the answer that that they don't do that. And that was actually before they were kind of crippled by cases right in their department. So they're probably even less likely to do it now. We're working with Guilderland EMS, which is, we're trying to finalize a date and time for a seminar for our staff on trying to reduce transmission of the virus. I think we're going to need a little bit of time. I can't tell you how much to make sure that we do this safely. And I also think there's a significant question about whether we should even be doing public browsing at all. I think that the experience of other libraries over the last month or so as the virus numbers strengthen is that people aren't coming in for public browsing. I will be attending a director's meeting tomorrow morning at 10 for the Upper Hudson system, and I will try to get feedback on that concept from the directors of places like Colony, Bethlehem, and Albany, kind of our peer institutions. So my position really is that there's more work to do before I can safely open the door for browsing in the library.
Okay. So I believe there was also via email a question from Mark about, are we still on target for December 1st at this point?
Mark is asking that now, or are you referring back to his email?
I'm referring back to his email, and I guess, you know, I'd like to know, Tim, your thoughts, and of the board members who have toured the library in its state, you know, if anyone feels like there needs to be a change to the December 1st a date in either direction. Marcia, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to leave. My vote is that we need to listen very carefully to the public comments by the staff, who I don't think should be identified. I think we should respect their anonymity, and, you know, we'll obviously discuss that in the policy committee. I think they're serious comments, and I think in light of the fact that we have an upswing in Albany, and I read those reports every day, there are 89 people in intensive care, and we have the holidays coming up. I think it's very ambitious to say right now that we're going to open the library December 1st. That's a couple of weeks away, and I think we should listen to the staff. And I'm glad, Tim, that you're planning to have meetings with them. But unless and until we talk to EMS and CSEA and our own practical sense of where we should be, because I was on the tour, and I would feel very uncomfortable to have the public in that meeting in the library in its current condition. So I wish I could stay, but I feel very strongly about that.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you for your 2.5 hours of participation already tonight.
I apologize.
Nope,
Okay.
that's okay. There's a lot to get done. Richard, hold on. I think that's Mark. I see Richard with a hand up. Mark, can you wait till Richard is finished?
Yes,
or
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I would just like to echo Marcia's opinion, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. I think that when you look at these decisions, it's a matter of risk versus benefit. And this is probably the highest risk time in terms of community transmission, with the prevalence rate in the population being 3% or so. It's a very tough time to make any liberalization of requirements. It's, you know, the demand for the services does not seem to be that great. I might be understating it, but I think that the public would understand that to bring people in to a situation in which social distancing would be very difficult is kind of impossible or inadvisable at this point. I think also that there would have to be an occupancy limit, and that would require a lot of clerical work to monitor the incoming and leaving people in the library, to set a limit and make sure we live by it. I noted in the public comments that there was some request to involve medical professionals. The opinion I give tonight is one as a physician, that I think that opening for browsing at this point, given the tight spaces involved, the staff concerns, and the rising incidents in the community, would be a mistake. And I would recommend reconsidering it in somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks.
Thank you, Richard. Mark.
Yeah, I just want to clarify my question, Kate.
Sure.
It was. I definitely think there's two decisions. One is physically, do we have the ability to open, which is a completely different maybe discussion. That is, physically, can the library open based off of construction and that. But then I think there is also a health decision we need to make in whether we even want to open if it is physically open. That's kind of where my question was, is like, are we on track to open physically? and I know things are changing health-wise, I think that's a completely different question. So
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the hard part is that, you know, are we physically ready to open is one thing. Are we physically ready to open under the current health conditions? And I have trouble separating them because, you know, specifically one of the staff members that brought up in public comment that if they're working more than 6 hours, the library has to give them a meal break and they have to provide a space to do that safely. And so that for me was like, oh, right, these two issues are pretty interconnected. So, you know, are we physically ready to open? You know, I didn't hear necessarily a lot from staff. I did hear some things about emergency exits and lines of sight that they had concerns about, you know, related specifically to construction.
I think whenever I had the question, it was if we needed to have, like you said, that space for a break, has that already been identified if we were going to open? And then even if we had all of that in place, could we do that? Could we open? Now, I'm not necessarily saying I agree that we do open because of the health issues that are going on, but if we wanted to open, I just don't want the operational side to be holding us back. I guess
Okay.
the question was.
That's a great, okay, so Tim, in terms of construction, regardless of virus, you know, do things look on track? What would be any potential any hangups there?
I see where you're going. So here are potential hangups. One is, obviously, as you pointed out, there are connections between the construction and the virus issue, and the primary one is social distancing. So there is not enough space in the building to socially distance and provide that eating. Now, our lawyer, Chris Linchanton, assures us that we do not have any obligation to provide a place to eat. We only have to provide a time to eat. But that question certainly could bear more research, and perhaps CSEA would present evidence to the contrary. The other issues are fire and emergency exits, which we're working on clearing up, and many of them should clear up soon. Within a week to 10 days, the fire exits that were mentioned specifically in one employee's comment will be addressed, as far as I know from talking to Kirk today. Exit signs need to be improved for sure. So a place to eat, a place to work, which is a much larger question, but that's why we're staggering staff and also social distance, having some people work from home because there's not enough space. I mean, I'll go back to something I said at a previous board meeting, which is we embarked on the whole project because we didn't have enough space. And that was before the requirements for social distancing and then the recent development where we're doing the first 3 spaces at once instead of sequentially. So if you didn't see it on the tour, the 7 board members who toured, if you took that tour and you think there's plenty of space to find everyone a place to work and everyone a place to eat, I would respectfully disagree. There isn't. So emergency exits and exit signage are real key details there. And there are others. I mean, you know, that was a long list of comments, but those are the ones that come back to mind. I think we could technically, physically open shortly after December 1st if we resolve the escape issue. But we've still got some problems there for sure. And then as Mark noted, the virus is a completely different question, even though, as you noted, they are somewhat connected.
Sure. So what you're saying is operationally, currently, as it stands, we are not in a place to open the building due to construction on December 1st, as previously we had thought.
Right, right.
is there a new target date to open the building based on construction?
No, but I think if I had to pick one, I would probably say about 2 weeks after December 1st. I think resolving the exit signs and the emergency exits is something I'm already working on with Kirk, and the progress of the construction is such that I believe those exits will be safe to escape through shortly, within the next week or 10 days. The lunch issue, I don't have an answer other than eating at your desk, and a lot of employees are not happy with that answer, particularly because they don't have desks. You know, it's kind of a Gordian knot trying to solve that.
Sure, I certainly don't envy you. So it seems like in your operational update, we are behind on our current reopening plan to open Stacks for Browsing on December 1st.
Right, if we want to do it safely. And safe is not just the virus, but also escaping in the event of a fire, active shooter, et cetera.
Sure. Is there a board motion at all from anyone? Yeah, Brian.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to drag the meeting. I had a question for Tim.
Okay.
Are we still rotating like half the staff? Like, was it every 2 weeks, half the staff every other 2 weeks, or is everyone in there at one time right now?
It's kind of a hybrid of those two ideas, Brian. So many of the departments are at full participation, but the circulation department is using a staggered approach because they can't all be there at once in order to socially distance. And the same is really true of the librarians, the Programming and Public Services Department. The CIRC department has a lot more real estate than the PPS department does to have workspaces, but they are crowded as well. So I would say that I think it's a fair statement to say that the two largest departments in the building are both still rotating through. On a more, there's a little more time being spent in the building overall than there was prior to October 7th, when we brought everyone who could come back to work. But we soon realized there were huge impracticalities. There's just no place for people to work, and also socially distance is what it kind of all comes down to.
Okay. So seems like we're going to have further conversation on the operational plan. That is something that we should do, but before we forget, should we make a motion to approve the directors and department heads reports for 2020 and then go forward on any motions regarding the operational?
So moved. I make that motion.
Brian makes the motion. Peter seconds. Thanks, Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Barbara, you are opposed to?
No, aye.
No, you're in favor. Aye. Okay. Sorry, little delay. All right. Any abstentions? All right. So that passes at 8:45 unanimously. That being said, Tim has recommended that the library is not open, will not be ready to open on December 1st in the Stacks for Browsing as previously in the reopening plan. He has suggested a 2-week delay on that, which would put it at the 15th of December. Is that a projected date, Tim, that you think that based on construction can be met?
Right, and the key being based on construction. I think that we could resolve the various construction-related issues that I'm aware of and that employees have raised, but that is based only on construction. Based on the virus, it's a different story.
Sure. So All right, so if it was solely a construction issue, you would therefore recommend the 15th of December.
Right, and that, keep in mind though, that that's without Kirk on the phone call at this particular point. But of the issues I'm aware of, I think they'll all be resolved by the 15th of December. And then, you know, I hate to sound terrible, but there will probably be some new issues that come up, you know, I mean, it's a dynamic process, so.
Absolutely.
But anyway, yeah.
But that is, so, okay, so that is based on construction. Yes, Barry?
Our next meeting is not before the 15th. If we make a motion to open on the 15th, and whether it's the construction or more likely the coronavirus that prevents that, does that mean we're going to have an emergency meeting before then? And if so, I'd like to make a motion then, or have someone make the motion that we push the date back from December 1st to maybe like January 8th or 10th or something. I think that's much more reasonable. I mean, Guilderland High School just shut down today because of the virus. All the schools in the area are starting to shut down. I'm sorry, but December 15th is not a reasonable time with the situation that we're in and the way we're heading. And if we make it just 2 weeks later, that's not. We're going to have some sort of emergency meeting or something, because it's not going to be ready.
I agree with Barry.
Barry, is January 8th your motion, and do you want to put it in the form of a motion? Because I will second it.
Okay, let me just check my calendar real quickly to make sure it's a.
That's, Barry, that is a Friday.
So we would be talking the 11th.
Let me make a motion. I will make a motion that we push back the opening date of the operational plan to January 11th. Again, which will depend upon the situation that's going on, but that's my motion.
All right. Motion by Barry, second by Richard.
Barb has her hand up.
I got it, Jason. I'm just, so that's January 11th, and now discussion. Barbara, yeah.
I just had a question for Carol. Is that the end of a pay period or the beginning of a pay period? January 11th?
No, I'd have to look. I have to count it out. I don't have my payroll calendar in front of me.
Tim, would you know? Because it'd be good to, you know, to start it on a new 2-week period.
I do not know the answer to that, sorry.
Yeah, I don't have a calendar in front of me to look at it.
From the point of view of processing payroll, I'm not sure it makes any difference. You know, it's going to take a lot of people to prepare for it anyway, so people will be working, you know, the day before we open, just like they will on the day we open.
But now, are we going to be open 7 days a week? Are we going to be open? I mean, right now, we haven't had any services on Sunday, including the shed or any pickup or anything. So I guess nobody's been working on Sundays, right?
Very few people are working on Sunday, but we do have some part-time people who work for the state during the workday and can only get their hours in on Sunday, and we're interested in keeping them Saturday and Sunday, by the way. And by the way, random comment, but none of the 29 libraries in the system have any Sunday hours right now.
But traditionally, we have been one of the few libraries that do have Sunday hours. And I would just, if somebody is there and they can open up a shed, at least for drop off. And if they're working, they could put the stuff out, you know, for pickup for people.
Yeah. I'm not sure we have a maintenance person there on Sunday. Obviously we could, but we would be paying him 1.6 times what we'd pay him on other days of the week. So, you know, I'm willing to do that if the board wants us to do that.
I guess my question is on that. It's just a matter of unlocking, you know, a shed, and does it take a maintenance person, or can anybody just unlock the shed?
Yeah, I suppose I could get a key to the shed and drive over to the library twice on Sunday and unlock the shed if that would make you happy.
I see. Jenna.
Yes. I just did some counting, so I hope it's accurate, but payroll.
Oh, Jenna, you're breaking up. Sorry. Can you repeat?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
According to, if I did the math accurately, the January 11th date falls between December 30th and January 12th payroll.
Okay, so
So I will amend my motion to start on January 13th. then? Would that be the correct date, Jenna?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion then.
all right, so Barry has amended his motion to change the the reopening plan to push the December 1st date back to January 13th. And I don't remember where we landed on this, but Richard, do you have to approve the amendment to the
Yes.
motion since you're the second?
No,
Okay,
I changed my second to the amended motion.
excellent. So the motion on the floor is for January 13th. So further discussion. Is there further discussion?
I feel a lot better about that date.
And that would also give us another December meeting to gauge the situation and remain flexible. So excellent, I think, very good suggestion to not have an emergency meeting.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you,
we all-
Jenna.
We all might appreciate that. I'm hearing someone.
Mark.
Mark, yes.
Yeah. I just, like I said, with my original question, I just want to make sure operationally we are okay to open, even in January. So as we get to January, I just, construction's out of the way, that really our decision's based upon the COVID issue and not necessarily the construction issue.
Okay. So I think operationally, Tim said we're behind 2 weeks, which put us at the middle of December. And then based on COVID, they said maybe we need a little more time to consider, and then also in case something comes up. So is there anything, Barbara, anything more on the motion?
I had something to add.
Oh, Brian, yeah.
Richard, at one meeting, or a couple of meetings ago, made a great suggestion about trying to get the public's input. I forget exactly what your suggestion was, Richard, a couple of meetings ago, and it may not be perfect because I think we were talking about closing the library indefinitely at that point. But I think it might be beneficial to kind of poll the public to kind of get their thoughts. Certainly I hear the staff and I understand them. I know from my experience in my job, I work for someone who's from Brooklyn, and we've been almost inundated with calls because the Brooklyn Public Library closed, and a lot of people were complaining. So, obviously we're not Brooklyn, but it's always been a problem we've had is getting input from the public. So it would be nice to kind of reach out in some way to kind of to get their thoughts. I'm not saying moving the date from January. It just I have a feeling when January comes, we're going to be moving the date to February and March. And I would like at some point to kind of get the public's kind of input on this. And I know it's a moving target, but I think we would all benefit from a board listening, like hearing from the public, not just, the employees.
Jason.
I would just like to add, because it just seems like we just keep moving the goalposts, is that at some point we're going to not be open for almost a year. And then, we're going to go another 3, however long. When are we going to say, okay, we're just not going to open, and we're going to have the discussion of furloughs?
Yes, we probably will have to have that discussion. It is almost 9, and I know I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm not sure that discussion is ready to be had tonight.
Well, I completely understand. I'm just saying that what we need to at least say, okay, if we reach this point and we're not open, then we're gonna have to like reassess some things.
I think as a board that was made clear that, you know, some members wanted to discuss furloughing staff if the library remained closed. Tim had a conversation with Chris Lanchanton regarding that in terms of you know, what it means, what it could look like, and it can look different. The board has the ability to make those decisions, and it could be, you know, if the library is closed for 2 weeks versus if the library is closed for 4 months, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the same, but yes. So, you know, we could put that on the table at the December meeting, you know, when we talk about this operational update again and the reopening plan. If it changes again, you know, we could put that on the agenda for December. And in the meantime, the Labor Management Committee could meet with Chris to go over some of those ground rules and what furloughs might look like, to provide us with some recommendations, if you guys want to do that. Richard.
Could I also request that prior to the next board meeting, Tim provide us an update in writing with his recommendation about where we are in terms of operations and COVID? With,
yes.
You know, with the current state and recommendation. That way we can mull it over a bit before the meeting.
Tim, can you do that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. I think I'll do it. And if it's okay, you know, Jenna has kind of moved the timetable on board packets so that you guys are getting your packet 1 week before the board meeting. So if I just made it a separate part of my monthly report, and you got it in the board packet, would 1 week be enough time for you guys to read that and reflect?
Speaking for myself, I think you could even go with less. Just you, because like a day is like a week normally, and everything can change in 24 hours. So if I got something 48 hours ahead of time, for me, that would be really helpful.
So
are you, just to be clear, it's about COVID, or is it about COVID and construction?
I would say
COVID and construction, yeah. Separately, together, all the craziness. Yeah, Jason.
Okay.
I'm confused because I don't know what Tim is going to give to us as far as COVID goes. I mean, like he gives us the emails as far as like what the status is. Like, I mean, like, I want to know what you're asking from Tim as far as COVID.
What I'm asking?
Yeah, like what do you look like? Because I don't know. Tim is already giving us updates from the county supervisor, and it's not like, you know, Tim is working for like the health department or something. So I just don't know like what specifically you're trying to get from him.
I'd like to know his assessment of the tenor of the staff in terms of COVID and what he's hearing from UHLS, that kind of thing, in terms of not COVID statistics, but the library's preparedness. Like, is there enough staff to do a count of people coming in and going out if we wanted to limit occupancy, which I think would be a part of any reopening plan.
So, okay. Thank you for the clarification, Richard. Jason, does that sort of clarify for you that it's...
Yeah, thank you, Richard. That's exactly what I wanted to know.
Okay. So, Jason, would you like us to put furloughs on the December agenda? You're on mute. You went the other way. Jason, you're muted.
I would think that it'd be something that we're going to discuss probably in the January meeting. We don't need to have that discussion in a month because it seems like, you know, everyone's a little bit on edge with the rising stats. It definitely should be something that, you know, once the new year comes around, because again, once we get into March, we're going to be shut down for an entire year. And then if you're going to say we're going to be shut down longer, we're going on years in which, like, you know, people haven't had access to the library. So I have a certain mindset, and I know that a lot of people that, you know, I represent have a mindset that, well, if I don't have access to it, it's not serving me a purpose. Why am I paying? What am I paying for?
Sure. I fully agree. I just want to say that people have been able in some capacity to access the library. It's not like there have been no services. They have been limited. I will say that. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that the library is not providing any services right now.
But it's also not fair for taxpayers to be paying a full price for for artificial virtual things, or not being able to see the collection or even utilize certain things that they would if it was open. It's totally different.
What I'm asking is, in December, if we are deciding because that meeting will be our opportunity to push back the January opening date or not. At that point, the opening date will have been pushed back already 1 month, possibly another. Is that, you're saying, when are we going to discuss furloughs? I'm asking if you want it on the meeting agenda for December.
No, I don't think December is necessary. I feel like, right now, you were correct. We probably should see how things are going to go, especially after Thanksgiving. But again, that's my issue, is that we probably, this is my opinion. I don't mean to discredit anyone, but I felt like we should have been open a couple months ago. With that being said, I would like to, play it safe, but the way I play it safe is it seems like it's not how everyone else sees it. So I don't think, I think it'd be hasty to do it to put it on the agenda in December. I think January would be more appropriate.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're being proactive and that we're giving the staff, if this is a possibility, a chance for them to figure out what they're going to do over the winter. Barbara.
I really would like us to do a preliminary look at the possibility of furloughs. As Jason pointed out, we've been paying staff for it will be almost a year, and with very limited services. So the services that they have provided have been excellent. But on the other hand, it's not like working, a full 8-hour day and all that. So, but we have no idea what the rules and regulations are regarding furlough. Do they get paid? Do they get 2/3 pay? Do they get any pay? I think we should explore that and, with the personnel committee, and present it to the board so that we have some basic knowledge about what do we mean by a furlough.
Okay. So that's enough for me, is that one board member asked us to explore this. So Barbara has asked us to explore this, and Jason said, when do we explore this? So Barry, could the personnel committee, or I guess the labor management committee, set up a meeting, include Chris Lanchanton? So we have a lawyer involved about what the ground rules are for such a circumstance should it arise. And just a reminder.
Will do. I wrote it down. And
thank you. And just a reminder to make sure that all the board members and the public are, it's an open meeting. So.
Correct.
All right. Do we need a vote on January 13th? Still, we have, I believe, a motion on the floor from Barry and Richard. We can, if people are ready, knowing that we'll discuss furloughs in December and have that extra meeting to possibly push back that date again. Are folks ready to take a vote on the motion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Richard.
You have a comment?
No, do you, so let's go into a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. Yes,
Yes.
from Richard. Kathy.
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Mark. Mark, you're muted. I'll come back to you, Mark. Noreen.
Yes.
Brian. Okay, Mark.
Yes.
Yes from Mark. Okay. Brian, Jason,
Yes.
Kate, yes, that's me. Peter,
Yes.
and Marcia is no longer here. So I'm counting that as an abstention from Brian unless you speak now. Abstention from Brian. So that motion passes. And it is 9:06. So Tim, thank you for your update and your recommendation. Luann, please work to get the notification out to the public that there's been a change to our reopening plan. Oh my goodness, old business, revised mask policy.
It appears in the board packet. I think it's just a vote.
Excellent. Does anyone want to make a motion on it? So I should read it. It would be diligent to read it. Sorry. Let me get to it in our packet. All right, so the mask required is in your packet. In keeping with the Executive Order 202.17 for Governor Cuomo, masks are required of all patrons, staff, construction workers, and vendors who enter the building until further notice. If an individual is under 2 years old, they are exempt. If a patron is medically unable to wear a mask, we will make provisions to check out materials and bring them outside for contactless pickup. Masks are the only acceptable form of face covering. Gaiters, bandanas, and scarves are not acceptable substitutes. Masks must be worn over the nose and mouth at all times. The library will provide a mask for anyone who arrives without one. So, is there a motion to accept to adopt this policy as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kathy, I see second by Noreen. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll go directly to a vote. Richard?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Barbara? Barbara? Yes, okay, I'm seeing you nod, but I'm not hearing you. Barry?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Noreen?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. Jason?
Yes.
Kate is yes. Peter has left the meeting. Still it passes at 9:09. And thank you, Brian, for participating in this vote. If you don't respond, you will be considered abstained from any other votes for the time being. That brings us to any new business. Is there any new business? Excellent. The minutes of the regular board meeting from October 15th. Jenna, who is abstaining?
Yes, that's Brian, Mark, and Peter. Well, Peter left, so that won't count.
Okay. So no Brian, no Mark, no Peter. All of those who remain in
Comment?
Yes.
Comment? Okay, I had a few grammatical corrections, which rather than read them and waste time, I've let Jenna know if that's sufficient, so I don't have to waste time and just read grammatical changes.
Yeah.
But I do have one, excuse me?
I think that's
I
fine.
do have,
Go ahead.
okay, I do have one comment. Under the treasurer's report, it stated that the library received memorial donations on a patron's behalf. The patron was Paul Ward, who was a very long time member of the Friends of the Guilderland Library, as well as a director, board member. And I would just like to have his name added rather than just a patron's behalf, to list his name.
I'm in favor of that amendment. So
And so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes with that one change, as well as the grammatical changes.
all right, moved by Barry, second. Noreen, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, and those few abstentions, that vote does pass because there are 7 of us who can vote on that, and no one voted not in favor, so we make our quota of 6. Public input. Luann, have we received any more?
No, I have not received any more.
All right. And so there is one personnel action for this evening. And Tim, is there anything that you would need to tell us in executive session regarding these employees? I mean, we don't have to
No,
enter executive session, so
I agree. It's just 2 standard resignations.
so if there's nothing to discuss, I move that I would suggest to the board that we go through making these motions, and if there's no need for an executive session tonight, that we just move forward.
Let's move forward.
Excellent. So the 2 personnel actions are to accept the resignations of Megan Pierce, part-time library page in Access Services Department, effective October 25th, 2020, and Wilsonia Acasio, part-time library clerk in Access Services Department, effective October 27th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those resignations as presented? Barbara,
Mark.
second by Noreen. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? So that's unanimous at 9:13. And so that brings us then to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mark.
Everybody makes
I
a
second
motion.
it.
Doreen makes the motion, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's so early.
Thank
adjourn
you,
already?
everyone. So thank you, everyone, very much.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Have a very good night.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Aye.